Brother, is this job big enough? See, I didn't lie to you. Lin Feng looked at his grinning best friend Zhang Chu, feeling an urge to punch him in the face. That face, always so serious and stern on TV. Why did it look so infuriating when he was with him? That day at the dinner table, he had complained to this top military pilot about the sluggish business at his newly acquired mechanical refitting factory. He wanted some big work. Jokingly, he claimed his skills were good enough for professional nuclear submarine maintenance, reactor refurbishing, polishing warheads, waxing aircraft carriers. But everyone knew it was just an internet meme. But Zhang Chu, that bastard, actually sent him an airplane. A badly damaged fighter jet. Coming to his senses, Lin Feng's face darkened as he said, "Zhang Chu, what the hell are you up to? I run a civilian mechanical repair plant, not an arms factory. How am I supposed to fix this plane?" Seeing the slightly stunned shock on Lin Feng's face, Zhang Chu was clearly satisfied. He chuckled and patted Lin Feng on the shoulder, saying, "Ha ha ha, old Lin, don't be scared. I sent this plane to you not for you to repair it. There's a large military expo at the Jinghai City Expo Center in half a month. We need a model aircraft. So all you have to do is refurbish the exterior panel beading painting. The appearance must look good. If possible, add some cool decorations. You know how expos work. Standard routine for the Strategic Deception Bureau. As long as it looks intimidating, it's fine." Hearing this, Lin Feng breathed a sigh of relief, but still waved his hand dismissively. "Even if it's just surface decoration, that's a huge project. Half a month. I can't even finish the panel beading. No can do." Zhang Chu panicked when Lin Feng refused. "Old Lin, this job of refurbishing a model aircraft is neither too high-end nor too low-end. Arms factories look down on it, and I don't trust ordinary machine shops. You're the only one I can trust. Just help your brother out. And the profit isn't small, at least 100,000, maybe more if done well." Lin Feng weighed the options in his mind. If it was just surface refurbishment, though difficult, he could manage it. He considered it as helping a friend, and his factory hadn't had work in a long time. With that thought, Lin Feng finally shrugged. "All right, I'll take it." Zhang Chu's face lit up, but before he could speak, Lin Feng interrupted. "But let me make it clear, the military must provide all the materials for the refurbishment. Not just because of the cost. I have no access to these military supplies." Zhang Chu laughed, beaming, and thumped his chest loudly. "Hey, is that all? Brother, go ahead boldly. Whatever materials you need, I'll get them for you. Deal then. They'll pick it up in half a month. Call me if anything comes up." With that, he got into the military jeep and drove away. After seeing Zhang Chu off, Lin Feng started walking around the damaged fighter jet, inspecting it. The more he looked, the colder his heart grew. The more he looked, the darker his face became. Damn, he might have agreed too hastily. The jet's condition was at best 30%. Both wings were broken, the paint had peeled off entirely. Most horrifyingly, the fuselage was split open down the middle, revealing a gaping wound with intricate wires and components. What a disaster. This thing looked like it was only worth scrap metal. Why had he been so foolish as to take this job? Just as Lin Feng was at a wit's end, a voice like heaven's melody sounded in his mind. Ding, detecting remains of an upgradable fighter jet. Super modification system activated. Would you like to start modification now? Lin Feng's heart jolted and his face lit up with ecstasy. System. If you hadn't come ID, almost forgotten him, a transmigrator. Modify, definitely modify. Modification plan generating. Generation complete. Plan 1, controlled nuclear energy fighter. Required materials: concentrated uranium-35, microreactor nickel-chromium alloy. Features: endurance, up to 30 years. Plan 2, anti-gravity fighter. Required materials: rubidium, permanent magnet proton generator vector jet device. Features: ignores Earth's gravity, high maneuverability. Plan 3, quantum ghost fighter. Required materials: quantum entanglement device. Plan 4, Plan 5. Looking at the modification plans displayed on the pale blue holographic interface, Lin Feng swallowed hard, feeling his mind couldn't keep up. Oh my god, what kind of outrageous stuff is this? Controlled nuclear energy, anti-gravity, quantum ghost fighter. Any one of them could revolutionize current technology. He calmed down and didn't choose the plans that were too shocking, like controlled nuclear energy or anti-gravity. After all, if he brought those out, he'd likely be taken away for research as a lab rat. After all, this modification only needed to look good and serve the strategic deception purpose right. So he picked what seemed to be the most unremarkable plan. Start modification. Full of anticipation, Lin Feng pressed the start button. Ding. Modification begins. In the next moment, a fully automatic assembly line materialized out of thin air in Lin Feng's shabby workshop. Huge silver mechanical arms and Redan black conveyor belts made the assembly line look like something from the future. With a nearly negligible mechanical hum, the old relic fighter jet remnants were grabbed by a mechanical arm and placed onto the conveyor belt. Then dozens of arms reached into the fuselage, disassembling it as skillfully as a butcher cutting up an ox. In just over 10 minutes, the once massive fuselage was reduced to a pile of scattered parts. This disassembly speed, if done manually, it would take days. Amazing, truly amazing. But Lin Feng's joy didn't last long as a system voice interrupted him. Plan 5 Solar Excitation Cracking Energy Fighter Required Materials List. 1. High-density monocrystalline silicon. 2. Superconducting catalyst. 3. Graphene high-performance reinforced composite board. 4. Ultra-high molecular weight polyethylene fiber. Seeing the material list provided by the system, Lin Feng gasped. These materials were all cutting-edge with astronomically high prices. But fortunately, except for one unsynthesizable element, the system could synthesize the rest from basic items like charcoal and sand. Even with that, the required items still far exceeded Lin Feng's budget. But wasn't Zhang Chu around? He dumped this huge mess on him and wanted to be hands-off. He made a phone call and explained the situation. Zhang Chu gasped in disbelief. This? Graphene? Ultra-high molecular weight polyethylene? Bro, what are you talking about? I can barely understand a word. Don't ask what it is. Just give me a straight answer. Yes or no. Zhang Chu quickly replied, bro, absolutely yes. Let me report to the higher-ups first. If the boss disagrees, he'll resign as ace pilot to get it approved. After hanging up, Zhang Chu thought for a moment and headed to Director Zhang's office. He pushed open the door and realized he had come at an awkward time. Director Li Weixin was furiously reprimanding his subordinates. Lu Jiat, the project budget is already tight and you're adding all these fancy extras. Our military funds are very strained right now. Cut all unnecessary items. Hearing this, Zhang Chu's heart tightened. He turned to leave, but was too late. The director had already spotted him. Yet when the director saw Zhang Chu, his expression softened noticeably. He spoke amiably. "The Chu, you're here. What's the matter?" Zhang Chu chuckled nervously and said, "Leader, I'd like to report on the space station model modification. Currently, the model modification work has found a very professional partner, and the work is proceeding in an orderly manner. But we've hit a small snag. To achieve higher quality, there's a slight budget shortfall, about 2 million, and we also need some special military materials." He swallowed nervously. Though he had bragged to Lin Feng in his heart, he wasn't very confident, especially since the leader had just been scolding others about the military's tight funds. As expected, hearing Zhang Chu's words, Director Li's brows instantly furrowed. After a tense silence, he spoke. "The Chu, you just heard that our funds are very tight right now. Normally, I wouldn't approve this, but this airshow is special. More than a dozen heavyweight experts from the capital will attend. We must take it seriously. It concerns our military's budget approval, so we'll make an exception this time. I hope you won't let me down." Zhang Chu's heart clenched. He quickly stood at attention, saluted, and replied loudly, "Yes, sir. I won't let you down." The soldier who had just been reprimanded looked at Zhang Chu with envy and pity, grumbling inwardly. "I begged for an extra 100,000 on my small project and got chewed out, but Zhang Chu asks for 2 million and gets it immediately. That's the difference. Who can blame him? He's the ace pilot." The funds and supplies were approved, but the unease in Zhang Chu's heart did not diminish in the slightest. Clearly, the leadership placed great importance on this airshow. Having requested the supplies himself, if the final fighter modification failed, he would inevitably face consequences later. He wanted to drive to Lin Feng's modification workshop personally, but an urgent mission prevented him, so he had to call and urge him instead. "Bro Lin, this money is on my career. They'll transfer the 2 million to you now. They'll have someone deliver the materials. Don't let me down this time." Lin Feng, obviously busy, replied perfunctorily. All right, I've got it. I'm swamped here. Come pick it up in half a month." He hung up without another word. Zhang Chu listened to the dial tone, his face full of helplessness. Now he could only trust Lin Feng. It was clearly too late to find a professional military factory. In Lin Feng's modification workshop, looking at the materials spread across the floor, Lin Feng rubbed his hands excitedly. Graphene flakes, polymer materials, composite catalysts. Such precious cutting-edge materials, ordinary people might never see them in a lifetime, let alone assemble them personally. All the assembly materials were ready. Lin Feng casually opened his live stream to broadcast the modification process. Although this modification involved the military, the aircraft was long retired, and its model data was no longer secret, so streaming posed no security issues. Entering the stream, the viewer count was low since it had just started, only a handful of people. Lin Feng recognized all these IDs. They were former customers at his shop. Thanks to his affordable and effective modifications, they had all become loyal fans. As soon as Lin Feng went live, viewers sent bullet comments. "Xiao Lin, where have you been all these days? Why haven't you streamed?" "Exactly, I've been waiting forever. The Civic you modified for me last time was awesome. With a $3,000 powertrain upgrade, I dusted a Porsche that was showing off. My buddy wants you to mod his car too." Watching the enthusiastic comments, Lin Feng smiled knowingly, then wore a mysterious expression and said, "Bro, I might not be able to take your friend's job for a while, because I've taken on a big one. Refurbishing a fighter jet." As soon as he said it, the bullet comments burst into laughter. "Haha, Xiao Lin, your boasting skills have improved in just a few days." "Exactly, that's a bit too much." Lin Feng ignored the doubts. He slowly turned the camera toward the disassembled jet body waiting to be assembled. The disassembled fuselage appeared in the viewer's sight. The previously joking bullet comments fell into a brief silence, then were flooded with exclamations like, "Holy crap, awesome," and 666. Lin Feng walked over to the disassembled aircraft parts and began a simple explanation. This is an early retired J-6 fighter. It has a wingspan of 6 meters, length of 14 meters, height of 3.8 meters, max takeoff weight of 7.5 tons, and a flight speed of up to 1.3 Mach. It's equipped with 3 30mm cannons and air-to-air missiles. As Lin Feng explained, the previously lively bullet comments suddenly quieted down. Whoa, Shaolin, are you serious? This kid actually seems to know a lot about aircraft modification. Wow, ridiculously absurd. But Lin Feng was too into his explanation to check the chat. His mind was full of the modification plan from the system. The modification plan I'm using this time employs ultra-high molecular weight polymer as the keel support to reinforce the original aluminum fuselage coated with graphene for enhanced toughness and stealth capability. The power core uses solar catalytic cracking of water to produce hydrogen as the energy source. Absolutely green and environmentally friendly. Lin Feng spoke while methodically following the instructions from the system in his mind, operating with precision. At first, the netizens could barely keep up, but as Lin Feng unveiled increasingly outlandish items, more new viewers flooded the live stream and the chorus of skepticism grew louder. Am I hearing this right? Hydrogen power. Is that for real? Even the US hasn't been reported to have such advanced propulsion technology, has it? Thought this streamer was a legit science educator, turns out it's all hot air for views. I'm out. Lin Feng merely shrugged off the doubts in the comments with a wry smile. As the modification progressed, he grew increasingly captivated by the ingenuity and marvel of the system's upgrade plan, immersing himself entirely in the process. Having stayed up all night with the aid of the system's lathe, he completed the aircraft upgrade by dawn. At the Jinghai City Center Science and Technology Museum, a grand military exhibition was underway. On a plaza the size of a football field, a dazzling array of weaponry was on display. Standard issue rifles, mortars, Type 9 tanks, heavy tanks, aircraft. The exhibition was open in a tiered format. As several military helicopters touched down on the rooftop helipad, all security personnel immediately went into lockdown mode. For aboard these helicopters sat over a dozen of the most esteemed academicians who had rendered outstanding service and achieved remarkable feats for the Dragon Nation. Each was a leading figure in the military industry, a powerhouse in their own right. Seeing the helicopters land, Minister Li, accompanied by Zhang Chu and a few others, respectfully stepped forward to greet them. As the aircraft came to a halt, several elderly men in plain gray jackets descended. Minister Li quickly spoke up. Academician Jean, Academician Wu. Welcome to Jinghai City, esteemed academicians. These two academicians mentioned by Minister Li were the absolute pillars of the Dragon Nation's military industry. Years ago, when the Dragon Nation faced blackmail from a certain country, it was these two who, against tremendous odds and under immense pressure, developed new weapons that helped the nation weather the crisis. Academician Jean and Academician Wu shook hands with Minister Li, smiling. Academician Jean said, "Minister Li, thank you for the warm welcome. It's not our first meeting, no need to be so formal. The impression from 4 years ago is still vivid." Academician Wu chimed in with a laugh. "Indeed, a very deep impression, haha." The three exchanged glances and burst into laughter. For years ago, Jinghai City had also held a military exhibition, but an inexperienced Minister Li had displayed cardboard models instead of real machines. This forced the academicians who had intended to offer guidance to take an off-road vehicle in the rain to a military base halfway up the mountain. The slippery roads nearly caused an accident. So this time, Minister Li directly arranged for a decommissioned military aircraft to be refurbished by Zhang Chu for the academicians' inspection. Minister Li patted his chest confidently. "Rest assured, esteemed academicians. This year, everything is real and the quality is top-notch." The academicians nodded in satisfaction. Zhang Chu, however, felt a knot of anxiety in his stomach, glancing at the fighter jet Lin Feng had modified, now covered by a huge black cloth. He had been busy with venue security and exhibit setup. He had only sent his subordinates to pick up Lin Feng's modified aircraft without personally inspecting it. Despite his trust in Lin Feng, doubt lingered in his mind. After the academicians arrived, Minister Li and other leaders gave speeches, followed by a brief address from the academicians, and the grand military exhibition commenced. As a fully open exhibition, it drew a massive crowd, including dozens of media outlets and well-known self-media personalities streaming live online. The exhibition hall was packed. Minister Li guided the academicians, introducing the various weapons and equipment used by their military district in recent years, from firearms to self-propelled artillery to tanks. All were live demonstrations with professional commentators. The academicians nodded along, clearly impressed, and offered incisive insights and suggestions on existing issues with the equipment. Strolling and pausing, they finally arrived at the center of the plaza. At this focal point lay the exhibition's main highlight, the fighter jet. Academicians Jean and Wu, being leading authorities in the field of aviation, naturally paid special attention to the aircraft. Minister Li immediately called out to Zhang Chu behind him. Zhang Chu unveiled the black cloth from the fighter jet. Zhang Chu's heart pounded as he approached the aircraft, grasped a corner of the cloth, and pulled it away with a swift motion. In the next moment, the full form of the fighter jet was revealed to tens of thousands of onlookers. The fuselage was streamlined, its curves as perfect as the world's finest crafted artwork. Unlike the typical silver white or gray of ordinary aircraft, this jet was coated in a premium matte black that absorbed all sunlight without a hint of reflection. The wings were long and sharp with compact, exquisitely designed turbines that radiated a sharp, aggressive aesthetic. It felt like a crouching black panther poised to strike. In that instant, a strange thrill ran through every heart, a breathtaking awe from the depths of the soul. Initially, the official live stream of the Jinghai Science and Technology Museum had only a few thousand viewers. Within minutes of the aircraft's reveal, the live stream's viewership skyrocketed, surpassing 10,000. The barrage of comments erupted like a geyser. Holy cow! What kind of plane is that? It's way too cool. Does the Dragon Nation have such an aircraft? I'm a military enthusiast, and I've never seen this before. Could this be our country's new secret tech? Haha, long live the mighty Dragon Nation. Don't get too excited. It's probably just a showpiece, a hollow shell meant to look good. But the most stunned were not the live stream viewers, but the academicians. As the saying goes, amateurs watch for spectacle, professionals watch for craft. Academicians Jean and Wu discerned that the aircraft's design significantly reduced wind resistance, and the matte black finish wasn't merely aesthetic. It clearly had stealth capabilities. Yet such stealth tech was only used on the US's most advanced B-2 bomber, a closely guarded military secret. The two academicians exchanged glances, their eyes filled with skepticism. The thought simultaneously crossed their minds, this must be a gimmick, a hollow spectacle. Thus they both turned to Minister Li with questioning looks. Compared to the two academicians, Minister Li was even more bewildered. His original intention was merely to have Zhang Chu restore the aircraft to its pre-damaged state as much as possible, but who would have thought it would be modified into such a form? Snapping back to reality, he shouted with a hint of anger in his tone. Zhang Chu, come here and explain what this is all about. Hearing the minister's shout, Zhang Chu's heart skipped a beat. He quickly trotted over to Minister Li, forcing an awkward smile. Minister, I followed your instructions exactly, selecting a J-6 fighter from retired military aircraft and hiring someone to refurbish it for this model exhibition. As for why its appearance changed like this, the mechanic I found is highly skilled. He must have a reason for doing so. Zhang Chu feigned calm on the surface, but inwardly he was already lamenting his misfortune. To avoid immediate exposure, he began to stall with words. Just then, a middle-aged expert behind Elder Jean suddenly spoke up. Oh, a highly skilled mechanic. May I ask which institution he graduated from, and which research institute he works for? This question immediately stumped Zhang Chu. He knew well that Lin Feng had only attended a third-rate university. His exceptional mechanical modification skills were all derived from extensive experience. So he let out a dry laugh and said, on neither, but he has been working in mechanical modification for over a decade and has very rich experience. Before he could finish, the questioning expert turned away with a contemptuous expression. Apart from Elders Jean and Wu, the other experts' faces were also filled with disdain and contempt. Zhang Chu's words caught in his throat, and a surge of indignation welled up inside him. How dare these experts look down on my brother? If this can be endured, what cannot? Even if it costs me my position as a pilot, I must stand up for him. With that thought, Zhang Chu changed his tune. As the saying goes, true knowledge comes from practice. I believe that no matter how many books one reads, without solid hands-on experience, one is merely an armchair strategist. The sarcasm in his words was unmistakable. The previously disdainful experts turned pale with anger. Minister Li, his face nearly green with fury, shot him urgent glances, signaling him to stop. However, Elder Jean let out a hearty laugh, showing no sign of offense, and encouraged him warmly. Young man, why don't you share your views? Zhang Chu steadied himself and continued, as a pilot with considerable experience, I believe this aircraft modification is highly successful. First, the exterior design is perfectly aerodynamic. I estimate it reduces air resistance by at least 30% compared to the original model. The camouflage paint also offers excellent stealth properties. Zhang Chu dared to speak so boldly not only to defend his brother, but also because as a seasoned pilot he recognized the remarkable quality of the modified aircraft, prompting him to take the gamble. As soon as Zhang Chu finished, the previously scornful expert sneered, "Ha, comrade, it seems to me that you are the one engaging in armchair theorizing. All you've said is mere speculation." Zhang Chu opened his mouth to retort, but found no argument, as this was merely a model that couldn't be tested in flight. The expert's face lit up with smug satisfaction. Just then, Elder Wu, who had remained silent all along, finally spoke. I believe this young man has a point. Based on my years of experience, the aircraft's exterior design is indeed highly aerodynamic. This ingenious structure, though seemingly simple, is extremely difficult to manufacture. I have only seen such a design in the most advanced F-35 Falcon fighter of the U.S. Furthermore, if this stealth coating similar to the B-2 bombers is effective, then it's safe to say that this fighter's exterior design is world-class. Academician Wu's words were few but astonishing. He had given such high praise to this aircraft. The F-35 Falcon and B-2 bomber are globally recognized as the most advanced fighters, and this model combined the strengths of both. This was incredible. Elder Wu's words immediately stirred up a commotion. The expert who had mocked Zhang Chu stood with his mouth agape, like an egg, awkwardly unsure of where to stand. Zhang Chu was inwardly shouting, "Awesome. Bro, I just asked you to refurbish a model, and you turned it into the world's most advanced fighter." Elder Jean's expression now grew serious as well. Upon closer inspection and touch, he was shocked to discover that this fighter was not the mere showpiece he had assumed. From the fuselage material to the turbine structure, everything suggested it was not a model, but a real aircraft. Most importantly, upon examining the turbine's powertrain, he found a propulsion system he had never seen before. The reporters, adept at reading the room, noticed the solemn expressions on the academicians' faces and sensed something significant. They crowded forward, thrusting out their microphones. Academician Jean, does this aircraft truly combine the advantages of the F-35 and B-2 bomber, as Academician Wu said? Commander Zhang Chu, could you disclose the name of the mechanic who modified this part? Minister Li, could you open the cockpit and let us see the interior? A single stone stirred 1,000 ripples. The surrounding crowd joined in clamoring to see inside the aircraft. Minister Li glanced at Academician Jean for approval, then nodded to Zhang Chu to open the plane. Zhang Chu approached the aircraft, his heart racing as he gazed at its dreamlike form. He pressed the canopy release button. The airtight door opened with a heavy hiss, and a boarding ladder descended swiftly and lightly to his feet. The cockpit interior was mostly upholstered in cream-colored leather. The control stick and instrument panel gleamed as if brand new, and the windshield was so transparent it seemed almost non-existent. Zhang Chu vividly remembered how dilapidated the aircraft had been when it was first delivered to Lin Feng. Yet in just half a month it had undergone such a transformation. Modified. He might as well have built a new one. The money was well spent. Damn well spent. Zhang Chu sat in the pilot's seat, the ergonomic design perfectly conforming to his back. Damn, this is amazing, he murmured to himself. Minister Li's expression had long since shifted from anger to elation, his grin stretching from ear to ear. He had originally planned for a decent model, but instead he had stumbled upon a treasure. Seeing Zhang Chu seated in the aircraft, the onlookers began to clamor. Start it up. Give it a try. Hearing the crowd's clamor below, Zhang Chu found himself in a predicament. His brother Lin Feng's modification skills were indeed extraordinary, but no matter how remarkable, this was merely a model. The core components of the aircraft's original power and control systems had long been dismantled. Taking off was utterly impossible. He thus cast an inquiring glance toward Minister Li below the aircraft, facing the reporters' extended microphones and the eager gazes of the public. Minister Li exchanged a look with Academician Jean, cleared his throat, and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, this aircraft is a model plane for the military exhibition. It should not have any startup devices or electronic equipment installed internally. It lacks the conditions for activation. However, to satisfy everyone's curiosity, we can have our military district's ace pilot Zhang Chu briefly demonstrate the aircraft's startup procedure." Zhang Chu began. Receiving Minister Li's affirmation, Zhang Chu nodded, took a deep breath, and started the fighter jet's startup following the normal operational procedures. Meanwhile, Minister Li personally explained Zhang Chu's steps to the audience. Now our pilot has put on the cockpit helmet, which serves to balance ear pressure and receive voice commands from the command station. Next, he presses the start button. Accompanying Minister Li's narration, Zhang Chu pressed the red start button. The demonstration concluded. The clamoring audience and reporters below were satisfied, offering warm applause to Zhang Chu and Minister Li. Academicians Jean and Wu also nodded with smiles. Minister Li smiled and began, "All right, the Hansen operation is complete. Next." But before he could finish, he was abruptly interrupted by a high-pitched mechanical whir. The high-pitched whir was ethereal and piercing, fleeting as if from the future, evoking an inexplicable thrill and awe deep within those who heard it. The crowd instantly fell silent, exchanging bewildered glances, each seeking the source of the sound from the other, yet none knew. Just then Zhang Chu, still in the aircraft, suddenly shouted with excitement. "Minister Academician Jean, it's the engine sound. This fighter can start." Instantly, the eyes of Minister Li, Academicians Jean and Wu, experts, reporters, and the public all fixed upon the fighter jet. The boarding ladder slowly retracted, and the cockpit door closed automatically. The turbine engines above the wings began to spin silently, stirring the air into an increasingly piercing shriek. A single thought echoed in everyone's mind who said this was just a model. This is the real deal. Minister Li quickly waved and shouted toward Zhang Chu in the cockpit. "Zhang Chu, what are you doing? Stop it immediately." But inside the cockpit, Zhang Chu could not hear Minister Li's shouts at all. Watching the indicator lights and control panel illuminate in sequence before him, his pilot instincts kicked in, and he cursed under his breath. Damn it, Zhang Chu, you're amazing. I told you to modify a model, and you turned it into the real deal. Just then the two sets of turbine engines beneath the wings emitted a piercing roar. For powerful jets of air burst violently from the rear. Everyone present was stunned. Good heavens, it was about to take off. Minister Li was the first to react, shouting, "Quick, security personnel, evacuate everyone to a safe distance of 100 meters. Also have the radio tower connect to the flight control system immediately and contact Zhang Chu in the cockpit." Personnel dispersed swiftly. Academicians Jean and Wu exchanged glances, their eyes filled with deep shock. Both were seasoned experts in fighter jets. From the sound alone, they recognized that the engine model in this aircraft was unlike any domestic model. Domestic engines could never reach such high revolutions in such a short time. This was a brand new engine technology. Could this aircraft be a new model obtained from abroad? Academician Jean asked urgently, "Minister Li, what is going on? Where did you get this fighter?" "There is no such fighter in this country." Minister Li said grimly, "Academicians, what if I told you I had this plane refurbished from a retired J-6? Would you believe me?" Academicians Jean and Wu were baffled almost in unison. How is that possible? The performance and design philosophy of this fighter are far ahead. How could it be a refurbished J-6? But before they could finish, a fierce, piercing screech suddenly came from the fighter. A thick, violent white flame erupted from the fighter's tail. The crowd evacuated to a distance, erupted in chaos at the sight. Oh my God, is this for real? Weren't the exhibits at this expo supposed to be models? Holy crap, this fighter is way cooler than the advanced ones from the US. I have no regrets being born in Dragon Country. What a surprise, what a thrill. Meanwhile, the live stream's viewer count soared to hundreds of thousands. Not only were domestic viewers watching the live broadcast, but many foreign intelligence agencies were also lurking in the stream. A fighter taking off. This was no trivial matter, especially an unknown new model. No one could guarantee that an accident wouldn't happen. Fortunately, the exhibition square had ample space, and other displayed weapons and equipment nearby were promptly relocated. Personnel were also fully evacuated, and the military cordoned off and secured an area of 1 kilometer around the exhibition hall. Minister Li sprinted to the nearest control room. Inside the control room, a makeshift communication station had been set up with several signal operators working frantically. "How's it going? Have we connected to the aircraft's communication system?" "Reporting, sir, we're attempting to crack the encryption." "Cracked. Connection established." One operator exclaimed excitedly, holding a walkie-talkie-like device. Minister Li lunged forward, grabbed the device, and shouted, "Zhang Chu, what the hell are you doing? Shut down the plane immediately." Zhang Chu's slightly panicked voice came through. "Minister, it seems impossible. This plane seems to have an AI autopilot system. I triggered it accidentally and don't know how to turn it off. It might take off any second now." Upon hearing that the aircraft was about to take off, Minister Li was instantly thrown into a panic. This plane's origin was unknown. If it were to become uncontrollable after takeoff and crash into a residential area or attack a military facility, the consequences would be disastrous. It seemed that a violent interception was the only option. Minister Li was about to give the order, but was halted by the sudden arrival of Dean Jin and Dean Wu. The two of them produced the equipment they had brought along, and after a flurry of operations, they directly connected to the information-sharing platform on the fighter jet. On the large screen, the data of the fighter jet piloted by Lin Feng was displayed in full view. Aircraft code J6574945. The moment they saw the code, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. This aircraft code was a unique identifier, much like a person's ID card. It was now certain that this fighter jet was indeed a modification of that J-6 fighter, not an enemy aircraft from outside. Current aircraft status: pending takeoff. Engines 14 at 80 power, H2O cracking rate 40s, stealth mode, active hydrogen storage, and oxidation chamber functioning normally. Insufficient runway distance detected. Takeoff mode changed from horizontal to catapult launch. Watching the constantly fluctuating information on the screen, not only Minister Li and his team were baffled, but even academicians Jean and Wu, who had spent years immersed in the field of fighter jets, wore expressions of utter disbelief. According to the data displayed on the screen, the aircraft's energy source was actually hydrogen produced by cracking water. And as a fighter jet, it could even perform a catapult launch. How is that possible? Academician Jean spoke up with a skeptical tone. Theoretically, this fighter jet cannot achieve a vertical catapult launch. To lift this behemoth weighing over 10 tons, the existing energy structure simply cannot generate such immense thrust instantaneously. Unless the water-cracking hydrogen energy mentioned in the data is real. Academician Wu shook his head. That's impossible. Given the current state of global energy development, cracking water to produce hydrogen as an energy source is simply not feasible. This does not conform to the physical laws we know unless a special catalyst can be discovered that greatly accelerates the water cracking process. I strongly suspect that this thing was cooked up by those people from the Military Industry Institute to bluff us two old fellows from the Lonka Institute. Upon hearing Wu's words, academician Jean's face suddenly lit up with understanding. Now that you mention it, I recall that old man Sheen from the Military Industry Institute has always held a grudge against us. This is probably another one of his tricks. Minister Lee listened utterly confused. He was a master at leading troops in a battle, but when it came to professional knowledge in the military industry, he was at a loss. Minister Lee couldn't help but interject. Academicians, do you mean that this fighter jet in front of us is something the Military Industry Institute created to scare us? The data on the screen is all fake and impossible to achieve. Academician Wu rarely cracked a smile. Exactly. Let's set everything else aside and just talk about this so-called catapult launch. A conventional catapult launch requires auxiliary equipment. Relying solely on the aircraft's own power is insufficient to support a vertical catapult takeoff. The thrust needed must not only exceed the aircraft's own weight of over 10 tons, but also provide additional power for acceleration. Thus, the instantaneous thrust must reach several dozen tons, which is utterly unattainable with current turbine engines. Minister Lee Half understanding was about to say something more when the data on the screen suddenly changed. Ding. Hydrogen-powered engine ready, plasma flow prepared. Engine 1 attitude adjusted estimated instantaneous thrust 2T. Engine 2 attitude adjusted estimated instantaneous thrust 2T. Engine 3 attitude adjusted estimated instantaneous thrust 60T. Engine 4 attitude adjusted estimated instantaneous thrust 60T. Hearing this, academicians Jean and Wu exchanged glances and both burst out laughing. Haha, now it's clear this is a joke. An ordinary fighter jet has a thrust of about 15 tons, and even the world's most advanced fighter jet has a maximum thrust of only 20 tons. Dual 60 totaling 120 tons of thrust. That's almost as powerful as a small launch vehicle. Their words drew laughter from everyone around, instantly dispelling the tense atmosphere that had previously filled the room. Minister Lee quickly used the radio to tell the young man in the plane to stop this prank. I suspect the engine sounds we heard earlier were simulated through built-in speakers. Still, this prank was quite successful. It really scared us all. But before academician Jean could finish his sentence, a deafening roar erupted, powerful enough to shake the very roofs off their heads. Accompanied by the thunderous sound, a blinding flash of light swept across the entire exhibition area. Everyone, their faces etched with terror, turned to look out the window. At the same time, Zhang Chu's voice, trembling with excitement, came through the communication device. Administer it can really fly. No one responded because through the window, everyone could clearly see it. The matte black fighter jet was like a swift and keen specter. In a flash, it hovered from the ground into midair. Its movement was so fast it left behind a disjointed afterimage. What was most terrifying was that as a fixed-wing aircraft, it simply hovered directly in midair. Academicians Jean and Wu, along with a host of experts, each and every one of them had their mouths wide open as if they could fit an egg inside. The scene before them was too bizarre, directly challenging the worldview they had built over the years. Such incredible maneuverability and hovering capability. It was almost like an alien spacecraft, a UFO. The crowd watching from afar erupted into thunderous cheers. Oh my God, it's flying. So fast. I barely blinked and it was already up in the sky. Amazing, absolutely amazing. The shock in the hearts of academicians Jean and Wu was now as violent as a tsunami. They were only now realizing their own ignorance and short-sightedness. Could the technology of the Military Industry Institute have advanced this far? This was a cross-level blow of dimensionality reduction. The current active-duty fighter jets were practically like toddlers, just learning to walk, in comparison, utterly powerless to resist. The anti-gravity and vertical catapult takeoff and landing that old man Sheen from the Military Industry Institute had boasted about a few years ago were not just empty talk. They were actually achievable. But this time old Sheen had acted far too conspicuously. He might find it difficult to explain himself to the Strategic Deception Bureau. Just then the notification sound rang out once more. Ding, current altitude 1,000 meters, entering supersonic flight mode in 5 seconds. Hearing this voice, both academician Wu and academician Jean revealed expressions of shock and uncertainty. One must know that for a fighter jet to accelerate to supersonic speed, it typically required over 10 minutes of gradual acceleration. This was partly due to limitations in energy thrust and partly due to the pilot's constraints. Because the human boat's ability to withstand acceleration is limited. An ordinary person would suffer bodily harm under 5g of acceleration, while trained pilots and astronauts could briefly endure around 10g. Going from a standstill to supersonic speed in just 3 seconds would generate an average acceleration of several dozen gs. This is equivalent to being directly struck by a car traveling at hundreds of kilometers per hour. Thinking of this, academician Jean's expression changed drastically. He snatched the walkie-talkie from Minister Li's hands intending to warn Zhang Chu inside the fighter jet, but it was already too late. The next moment, a bone-numbing sonic boom erupted. The fighter jet was instantly engulfed in a ring-shaped sonic boom cloud, like a bullet fired from a barrel vanishing from its spot at a speed nearly imperceptible to the naked eye. Holy shit! The crowd burst into expletives. On the large screen, the fighter jet was shown racing at a speed of 350 meters per second, directly breaking the sound barrier to reach Mach 1. At this moment, the facial expressions of Academician Jean and Academician Wu had completely lost control, looking as if they had seen a ghost. Achieving such a terrifying speed boost had completely surpassed their understanding, and after such a violent acceleration, the aircraft was able to fly normally, showing no signs of disintegration or cracking, demonstrating just how incredibly resilient the materials were. This was the third surprise beyond the power and catapult launch. Minister Li's heart leaped at the sight. Although he wasn't well versed in scientific data or theoretical knowledge, he had risen through the ranks from a grassroots soldier step by step. He knew the immense harm that excessive force could inflict on a person. Instant acceleration to supersonic speed. Such tremendous force was enough to crush a person into pulp. He hastily grabbed the walkie-talkie, his voice trembling slightly as he called out. Calling Zhang Chu, please respond, please respond. He repeated several times, but Zhang Chu did not reply. Only the crackle of static came through the walkie-talkie. Everyone present felt a sinking feeling in their hearts, all believing that Zhang Chu was in grave danger. But just as silence fell, a trembling, excited voice suddenly sounded from the walkie-talkie. Minister, this fighter jet is absolutely incredible. I just felt a blur before my eyes, and now my flight speed has reached Mach 1. I don't feel any discomfort in my body. Hearing Zhang Chu's voice, everyone breathed a long sigh of relief. Minister Li's eyes reddened, and he nearly cried. After all, a top-tier ace pilot like Zhang Chu was someone he might only ever train once in his lifetime. Moreover, after years of working together, there was a bond akin to that between master and apprentice. Zhang Chu's voice continued to come through the walkie-talkie. I've now figured out the aircraft's control system. Preparing to disengage the AI autopilot mode and attempt manual intervention. Manual intervention successful. Attempting to return to base. Adjusting turn. 180-inch, what 0? Zhang Chu's voice in the walkie-talkie suddenly rose in pitch, filled with surprise and shock. Meanwhile, Academician Jean and Academician Wu were also trembling with astonishment. Instantaneous 180-degree turn. My God, you're a fighter jet, not a UFO. Going from standstill to supersonic in 3 seconds is one thing, but an instantaneous 180-degree turn. Everyone should know that the faster you go, the harder it is to turn. A slow-moving car might make a U-turn with a radius of 4 or 5 meters. But a high-speed car might need 40 or 50 meters, and it would likely roll over. And now Zhang Chu's fighter jet was flying at supersonic speed. At such a terrifying speed, achieving an instantaneous 180-degree turn was simply mind-boggling in terms of maneuverability. Just then, the deafening sonic boom sounded again. Zhang Chu's fighter jet had reappeared in sight, performing various acrobatic flight maneuvers with extraordinary agility. Snapping out of his shock, Academician Jean spoke to Minister Li with an extremely serious expression and tone. Minister Li, I am formally requesting permission to use the red phone. Hearing this term, Minister Li couldn't help but tremble slightly. The red phone represented the highest level of encrypted communication authority in the military. The last time their military district had used the red phone was during the Dragon Kingdom's state of war. Without a moment's hesitation, he quickly led Academician Jean through layers of iron doors into a sealed room. At the very center of the room sat a completely red telephone adorned with several dusty aged seals. Academician Jean did not hesitate. He tore off the seals, pressed a number, and dialed. Ding, connection successful, entering the secure communication channel, please wait. Call connected. The call went through, and an aged yet powerful voice answered. Hello, this is Unit 07372. May I ask what business you have? Academician Jean immediately recognized the voice on the other end as that of Qin Weigua, Old Qin from the Institute of Military Industry. He shouted into the phone. Old Qin, what are you doing? Just to mess with me, you'd expose the new stealth fighter with its advanced power system like this. At this point, Academician Jean was fully convinced that this unexpected fighter jet was Old Qin's creation from the Institute of Military Industry. On the other end, Old Qin paused briefly, then spoke with great surprise. Old Qin, how did you know I was researching a new stealth fighter? Damn it, did you plant a mole in my Institute of Military Industry? Hearing Old Qin's words, Academician Jean became furious. Old Qin, now is not the time for jokes and playing dumb. Old Qin, on the other end, also grew angry. You old fox, you snoop into my institute's secrets and then try to turn the tables on me. I should be asking you. My new fighter jet is still in the testing and assembly phase. How do you know its characteristics? Upon hearing Elder Qin's words, Elder Jean was stunned on the spot. What's still in the testing phase? Then what was that thing flying in the sky? Could it be that he had wronged Old Qin? But aside from Old Qin, who else in Dragon Kingdom could have created such an earth-shattering marvel? Seeing Elder Qin's silence, Elder Qin continued his verbal assault. Old Qin, don't think I don't know. Did you call just to embarrass me? Let me tell you, although my new fighter jet hasn't been developed, yet once it is, all your current aircraft will be nothing but trash in comparison. Don't believe me? Let's see who wins at the military industry competition in 2 months. The military industry competition Elder Qin mentioned was held every 3 years in Dragon Kingdom. At that time, all of Dragon Kingdom's military research institutions would participate, but most were merely spectators. In every military competition, the most advanced and formidable equipment almost always came from either the Dragon Science Academy, led by Elders Jin and Wu, or the Military Industry Academy, led by Elder Qin. The ultimate winner would receive policy support and funding. Such competitions better ignited the fighting spirit of researchers. In the last competition, the Dragon Science Academy narrowly defeated the Military Industry Academy, leaving Elder Qin unconvinced. That was why Academician Jin had immediately suspected Elder Qin. Beep, beep, beep. The busy tone of a disconnected call followed. Listening to the dial tone, Elder Qin watched the fighter jet performing impossibly difficult aerial stunts in the sky. Elder Qin felt cold sweat trickling down his back. Such a terrifying creation wasn't Old Qin's doing. Then who could have made it? At the Military Industry Academy, in the capital, an elderly man in a dark green military uniform, his chest adorned with medals, his tiger-like eyes brimming with authority, slammed down the red telephone heavily. Did Old Qin use the red phone just to mock me, or did he have some unconfirmed information and was trying to bluff me? No matter what, once my new fighter is out, all the equipment you've developed will have to take a back seat. Guard. Yes, sir. Pass down my order. Everyone must accelerate their work pace. Tighten security effective today. No one leaves the academy grounds, and all communication devices must be surrendered. We must have our new model ready before the military competition. Last year they got lucky and won, but we'll show them who truly leads Dragon Kingdom's military research. Elder Qin's words were firm and resolute. The morale of everyone in the Military Industry Academy was instantly ignited, and they roared back their response as if injected with adrenaline. Yes, sir. At the Jingheim Military Exhibition Command Room, Academician Wu, noticing Elder Qin's grim expression, spoke up. Did Old Qin deny that this was their creation? Is he playing tricks? Elder Qin pondered for a moment before replying. Probably not. He was genuinely surprised that I knew about his new fighter project. They are indeed developing a new fighter, but it's far from complete. It couldn't possibly be here. Although Old Qin is a bit brash, he is meticulous in his own way. Such a reckless act wouldn't be like him. Elder Wu's eyes showed a thoughtful expression. If it wasn't Old Qin, then no other research institution in Dragon Kingdom has the capability to develop such an advanced fighter. As for what pilot Zhang Chu said about upgrading a domestic machinery factory, that's even less believable. The commotion this fighter has caused is already huge. The most important thing now is to have the pilot landed in a safe place. Elder Qin immediately understood and walked over to Minister Li. Minister Li, our top priority now is to get this unidentified aircraft parked somewhere safe. This aircraft has immense research value. Its power source and flight control systems far surpass our current technology. Therefore, we need to immediately seal off all information and prohibit any leaks. Have your pilot land the plane at your military base now, and we will head there immediately. Minister Li nodded, took the equipment into the car, and spoke to Zhang Chu via radio. Zhang Chu, immediately fly the plane and land at our military base on Songshan. Yes, Minister. Zhang Chu replied crisply. He glanced at the instrument panel, located the coordinates of Songshan military base on the navigation system, and confirmed. Then he pushed the throttle lever up 1 notch. Ding successfully switched to maximum speed mode. Turbo boost activated. Upon hearing this, Zhang Chu, a seasoned pilot, gripped the control stick tightly, a hint of nervousness in his grip. The next moment, a dazzling, orange-eared flame shot out from the plasma emitter at the aircraft's tail. The familiar sonic boom echoed again. An almost suffocating intense thrust slammed into Zhang Chu's entire body. He held the stick firmly, staring at the wildly climbing speed indicator, his eyes nearly popping out. In the span of a single breath, the fighter's speed had already surpassed the speed of sound and was still increasing dramatically. Watching the rapidly climbing Mach meter, Zhang Chu's voice trembled as he spoke. Minister, the speed increase of this fighter is terrifying. I estimate it will exceed Mach 5 in just over 10 seconds. By this time, Minister Li and Academicians Jin and Wu were already in the car heading to Songshan military base. Hearing Zhang Chu's words, Academician Wu spoke with disbelief. How is that possible? The world's fastest fighter, the US SR-71 Blackbird, has a maximum speed of only Mach 3, and it needs several tens of seconds to accelerate. How could it possibly? But before Academician Wu could finish, the portable aircraft status receiver emitted a prompt. Ding, current aircraft speed Mach 3, 5. Estimated time to reach designated cruising speed 5 seconds. Hiss. Everyone in the car gasped at the prompt. From the moment they issued the command, only a brief 10+ seconds had passed, yet the aircraft's speed had already climbed to a terrifying Mach 3.5, directly surpassing the world's current fastest fighter, the Blackbird. Even more terrifying, the speed was still climbing. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Academician Jean's body trembled slightly from sheer excitement. Our Dragon Kingdom's most advanced fighter has a maximum speed of no more than Mach 2.5. And for every Mach increase, the average acceleration time exceeds 20 seconds. He stared fixedly at the rapidly changing numbers on the device. Almost every second, the red light on the device's speed indicator would blink. Simultaneously, the fighter's speed would increase by 1 Mach. After flickering 2 or 3 times, the speed indicator finally stabilized, settling at Mach 5.5. Old Jean felt as if even breathing had become difficult. He clutched his chest and hastily fumbled out a pill of quick-acting heart medicine from his pocket, popping it into his mouth. Ever since their narrow victory over the Military Research Institute in the last defense industry competition, he and Old Wu, leading the Dragon Science Institute, had remained vigilant in times of peace, tirelessly working day and night to develop a new generation of fighter jets. They had pushed themselves to the limit, barely achieving an average speed of Mach 3 and a maximum instantaneous speed of Mach 3.5, which was merely the cruising speed of the most advanced fighter jets in the U.S. They had believed that with such speed they could stand unrivaled in the Dragon Kingdom. Yet today, this fighter jet appearing out of nowhere had directly surged to Mach 5.5, and it did so effortlessly without any strain. For context, the fighter they had developed could only reach Mach 3.5 with the help of rocket boosters. And even then, it could only maintain that speed for a few brief seconds or else risk disintegration. This meant that this fighter jet utterly crushed their aircraft in terms of both power and structural integrity, a complete and total domination. At that moment, Academician Jean and Academician Wu were utterly at a loss for words to describe their shock. If they could master the technology of this fighter, forget about surpassing the Military Research Institute. They could dominate the entire world. The U.S., Russia, even India, all would have to step aside. Just as everyone was still immersed in their astonishment, Zhang Chu's voice suddenly came through the intercom. Minister, I've arrived above Songshan base, but I can't land. The military base seems to have mistaken me for an enemy aircraft. Not only have they not opened the runway, but fighter jets are trying to lock onto me with their fire control radar. Upon hearing this, Minister Li broke out in a cold sweat. In all their haste, they had forgotten to notify the military base in advance. Yet he couldn't be entirely blamed. From the Jinghai City Science and Technology Exhibition Hall to the Songshan military base, it was a 2,000-kilometer drive. Even in a straight line, the distance was a full 1,500 kilometers. For an ordinary plane, even at full speed, it would take nearly an hour to arrive. But they had overlooked one thing: the astonishing fighter jet Zhang Chu was piloting had a speed of Mach 5.5. It would take less than 10 minutes to get there. If this new fighter jet were shot down by artillery, then Minister Li would not only lose an ace pilot, but also this incredibly precious aircraft. This could cost the Dragon Kingdom a golden opportunity to overtake its rivals and leapfrog into a new era of technological advancement. If that happened, he would surely be nailed to the pillar of history in eternal shame. At this thought, Minister Li's entire body began to tremble. In a frantic rush, he pulled out his phone to call the military base. But before he could even dial, the military base called him first. He answered immediately, and a voice came through. Reporting, Minister. Our patrol fighters at Songshan base have detected an unidentified aircraft hurtling toward our base at extreme speed. It's too fast. Our fighters can't intercept it. Most bizarrely, over 100 reconnaissance radars at our base, as well as the fire control radars on our fighters, can't detect this aircraft's position. We can see it with our own eyes, yet the radar screens show nothing but a blank. The fire control radar can't lock on at all. In my decades of military service, I've never encountered such a strange situation. That aircraft, it's like a ghost. Minister, there's no other option now. I request permission to use artillery to create a net and shoot it down. Hearing this, Minister Li's tense nerves relaxed slightly. He put the phone to his lips and roared, spittle flying. Shoot what? Stop right now. Open the runway. That's our own damn fighter. The pilot is Zhang Chu. Connect to channel B5-32342C. Minister Li's voice was so loud that it made the person on the other end at the military base shudder, freezing them in place. A huge question arose in their minds. Since when did our base have such a formidable fighter? It flies at incredible speed and can even achieve radar stealth. Using the channel code provided by Minister Li, the base command successfully connected to Zhang Chu, who finally landed safely at the military base. Back on the plane, Minister Li and the two academicians Jean and Wu heard the report of the fighter's safe landing, and the heavy stone in their hearts finally settled. As if by unspoken agreement, academicians Jean and Wu simultaneously fixed their gazes on Minister Li, their eyes seemingly ready to devour him. stared at so intently by two heavyweight academicians, even the battle-hardened Minister Li felt a shiver of unease. Academician Jean was the first to speak. Minister Li, where did this fighter come from? Don't try to fob me off with that story about a civilian machinery factory again. That's impossible. We've ruled out the Military Research Institute. So which military research institute gave it to you, or did you get it from abroad? Faced with the relentless interrogation from these two titans in the military industry, Minister Li felt his head spinning. All he knew was what Zhang Chu had reported that day. With no other choice, he spoke with a bitter face. Academicians, believe me or not, that's truly all I know. That civilian machinery modification factory was found by Zhang Chu. We can ask him later, he should know best where this fighter came from. Forced by circumstances, Minister Li had no choice but to use Zhang Chu as a shield. Academicians Jean and Wu exchanged a glance and stopped pressing him. After a moment, Academician Jean broke the silence, patting Minister Li on the shoulder. Oldly, it's been over 10 years since the Jingheim Military District and our Dragon Science Institute started cooperating, hasn't it? When we first began working together, you were just an ordinary soldier. Now you've become the minister of the military district. Over all these years, you've been satisfied with the technical support and weapons development we've provided, right? Academician Jean's previously stern expression softened, and a hint of geniality even appeared in his smile. Yet to Minister Li, this amiable smile felt like needles pricking his back. A moment ago, they were questioning him, and now they were calling on old ties. Could it be they didn't believe what he said? He quickly spoke up to profess his sincerity. Oh, Academician Jean, please don't call me oldly. I can't bear the honor. Satisfied. Absolutely 1,000 times satisfied. The Jingheim Military District will only cooperate with the Dragon Science Institute. We wouldn't even glance at any other research institutions. Hearing Minister Li's words, Academician Jean and Academician Wu both burst into hearty laughter. Excellent, Minister Li. With those words were set. The Dragon Science Institute demands priority research rights for this fighter of your district, and complete secrecy must be maintained until our research is concluded. In exchange, the Dragon Science Academy will not only continue its cooperation with your Jingheim military region, but also include your region in the first batch of pilot demonstration bases for new technologies and open 30 specialized talent training slots to your region. How does that sound? Hearing Academician Jean's words, Minister Li suddenly understood. So that was what Academician Jean's earlier speech was all about. The allure of this aircraft was so immense that it compelled Academician Jean, a man of his esteemed status, to offer such generous terms. Their Jingheim military region was merely of average strength. With the powerful support, Academician Jean proposed their region could soar to new heights, effortlessly securing a spot among the top 3 military regions in the Dragon Kingdom. At the Songshan military base, the airstrip was on high alert, with the entire base in a state of intense combat readiness. Hundreds of fully armed soldiers encircled the black fighter jet at the center of the airstrip, while Minister Li and the two academicians Jean and Wu hurried over with their instruments, making a beeline for the aircraft. The experts from the Dragon Science Academy, abandoning all pretense of decorum, swarmed over the fighter jet like they had struck gold, their faces beaming with excitement as they began their inspections, punctuating their work with exclamations of awe. Good heavens! What material is this fuselage coated with? My detector's microwaves are being completely absorbed. It would be a miracle if any radar could detect this. And this engine design. I've never seen anything like it. Watching the frenzy of the experts, Minister Li sidled up to Zhang Chu and asked in a low voice. Chu, be honest with me. Where did you secretly acquire this aircraft? Don't worry about telling the truth. This is a game changer for our region. This plane is priceless. When we get back, I'll reward you handsomely. Zhang Chu, with a look of utter innocence at Minister Li's mysterious demeanor, replied, Didn't I already report how I got it? I had it modified at a civilian mechanical workshop. But there's one thing I didn't mention. The owner is actually a friend of mine named Lin Feng. Before Zhang Chu could finish, Minister Li's expression shifted, startling Zhang Chu into a flinch. Tisk, you're not being straight with me, Xiao Zhang. I've been your mentor since the start of your career. The academician said it himself. No research institute in the entire Dragon Kingdom could produce a jet of this caliber. How could a civilian workshop manage it? Give me the real story. Did you get this from some secret department like the legendary Dragon Group or the Anomaly Bureau? Listening to Minister Li, Zhang Chu's face was a canvas of confusion. Just as he was about to speak again, a sudden shout from Academician Wu rang out. My God, what is this? The power source of this engine. Academician Jean's heart skipped a beat as he rushed over. Academician Wu pointed to a small box opened above the engine. This fighter doesn't use conventional fossil fuels. It relies on splitting water to produce hydrogen, which then drives the engine. And, after combustion, the hydrogen produces water, which is recycled, allowing for continuous power output without refueling. Academician Wu's words made Academician Jean gasp sharply, but he quickly retorted, That's impossible. It violates the law of conservation of energy. Academician Wu's face turned grave. No, it perfectly aligns with it. The secret lies in this honeycomb-like substance. This is a completely new, unknown material. One of its functions is catalysis. From my estimation, this mysterious substance has a special affinity for the molecular bonds of water. Under sunlight, it releases immense energy from within to break those bonds, thus forcing the water to decompose into hydrogen and oxygen. Look, Academician Wu stepped aside, exposing the substance to light, and gently dripped a small drop of water onto it with a pipette. The moment the droplet touched it vanished instantly, and a burst of air rushed toward them. The nearby hydrogen detector began blaring frantically. Academician Jean's eyes widened in disbelief. The decomposition rate is so fast. No wonder this fighter has such abundant power. This is a brand new, unknown super energy catalyst. If we can find a large quantity of this substance, the world's energy problems will be solved. Most importantly, this energy source produces zero pollution. Minister Li and Zhang Chu, overhearing Academician Jean, were stunned, their jaws nearly dropping. They knew the fighter was extraordinary, but they never imagined it contained something capable of transforming the global order. Incredible, absolutely incredible. Academician Jean, his eyes red with intensity, rushed over to Zhang Chu and asked in a tone of grave seriousness. Zhang Chu, I am now exercising the Dragon Kingdom's highest confidential inquiry right to question you. At this moment, Academician Jean was desperate to know who had built this aircraft. The technology it contained would not only skyrocket the Dragon Kingdom's military strength, but also address the world's most pressing energy revolution. Zhang Chu's heart trembled at these words. The highest confidential inquiry right. Even Academician Jean had only 3 chances to use it. Once invoked, the Dragon Kingdom would dedicate all its resources to finding the answer. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, Zhang Chu straightened up, saluted, and replied. Academician Jean, I solemnly swear that every word I am about to say is true, and I take full responsibility for my statements. This aircraft was handed to me by Minister Li Dalai, and I brought it to the Fengshan Civilian Mechanical Workshop at 1:00 on date. The owner is Lin Feng, and he indeed modified it himself. Report complete. After hearing Zhang Chu's account, Academicians Jean and Wu exchanged glances, their eyes filled with shock. They had thought the earlier mention of a civilian workshop was just an excuse, but it turned out to be true. Do you have Lin Feng's phone number or contact information? Academician Jean asked in a low voice. Yes. Call him now on speakerphone. Without hesitation, Zhang Chu pulled out his phone and dialed Lin Feng's number. After a few rings, the call connected. Lin Feng's voice on the other end sounded groggy, as if he had just woken up. Zhang Chu, what the hell do you want? I'm trying to take a nap here. I've been woken up 3 times in the last 10 minutes, and I've got serious morning anger, you know. I'm telling you, if you don't introduce me to some girls today, they'll never forgive you. His voice, projected through the speaker, left everyone exchanging awkward glances. Zhang Chu cleared his throat, his face flushed with embarrassment. Ahem, Lin Feng, I'm being serious here. Did you really modify that fighter? What's its name? At this, Lin Feng's voice shot up several octaves. Hey, Zhang Chu, you ungrateful bastard. You're biting the hand that feeds you, aren't you? I slaved over that fighter for days on end, welding and soldering through the night, and now you're doubting me. That bird shares my surname. It's called the Lin Tian Ghost Fighter. What the hell is Lin Tian's Phantom Fighter jet? With the 2 esteemed elders Jean and Wu, including their superior minister, Li, also present, how could Zhang Chu have any mind to bicker with Lin Feng? Ahem. Lin Feng, let's talk about the serious matter. Tell me honestly, did you build that fighter jet or not? As an ace pilot, Zhang Chu had flown countless missions, perhaps hundreds, and yet, whether it was fighter jets, helicopters, or transport planes, only after testing them did he realize that those aircraft cherished by the military as top secrets were nothing compared to this one. A mere child's play. The speed, the turbostart engine, it was damn exhilarating. Lin Feng, tell me the truth. Even if it's not yours, there's no shame in it. Truth be told, after experiencing it, Zhang Chu also doubted that Lin Feng could build something so advanced, a nobody from a second-rate university with a civilian machinery factory. Could he really have built this? The big shots were all watching. On the phone, Lin Feng's temper flared up instantly. Hey, Zhang Chu, you bastard. You're shitting after pulling down your pants, and now you want to own up. They'll say it just once. That fighter jet was built by me, weld by weld. Believe it or not. No returns, no exchanges. Before Zhang Chu could speak, the phone went dead with 2 beeps. Elder Jean, Elder Wu. Minister Li. Zhang Chu cleared his throat, his face awkward and uncertain like a child who had broken a glass bottle. Li Dalai shook his head with a sigh. As the superior, wasn't it his job to clean up his subordinate's mess? Elder Jean, Elder Wu, what do you 2 think? Elder Jean fell into deep thought. If Lin Feng really built this fighter jet, it would be terrifyingly impressive. Old Wu, what's your take on this? Do you think Zhang Chu wouldn't risk his career over a joke, especially since Lin Feng had repeatedly confirmed it over the phone? Currently, no research institute or military factory in Dragon Nation possessed this technology. Elder Wu pondered, his brow furrowed into a deep crease. Old Jean, I think this Lin Feng is a talent. The fighter jet might really be his creation. After all, the prime suspect Old Sheen from the military factory had been ruled out. The two elders exchanged a glance and immediately ordered Li Dahlia, Minister Li. This matter is of utmost importance. I hereby issue the highest directive. Mobilize the top military forces in Jinghai City. Spare no expense to find this talent named Lin Feng. Yes. With the two elders personally issuing the highest directive, how could Li Dahlia dare to delay? First level command. Attention all units. Follow my orders. Special Forces Teams 1, 2, 3. Jointly with the Security Department issue the highest command to cooperate in the operation. Once the target is confirmed, tighten the encirclement. Await further instructions. The fully armed soldiers around him stood at attention and responded. Yes. In Jinghai City, a video of a new fighter jet launching via catapult at a science museum exhibition went viral online. On Douyin Kuaishou and major news headlines. It topped the trending list. Netizens endlessly shared and clicked the video's popularity soaring. The comments section exploded. Holy crap, when did this happen? Our Dragon Nation has such an awesome fighter jet. Isn't this mind-blowing? A catapult launch, damn. I've got an even crazier clip. The jet did a 180-degree turn midair. It blew my mind. If this hadn't been leaked at the exhibition, I'd never know our Dragon Nation was this badass. Exactly. With such a fierce fighter jet, who cares about the U.S. or Japan? Mass produce it and we'd rule the skies. Dragon Nation is awesome. No regrets being born here. Brothers, forgive my low education. I can only weakly say damn, it's freaking awesome. The online frenzy continued to escalate beyond official control. At that moment, the official Douyin account of the Strategic Deception Bureau stepped in to refute the rumors. Hello everyone, I'm the spokesperson for the Strategic Deception Bureau. We've noticed the highly discussed video from the tech exhibition. The Bureau hereby declares that the video was edited and photoshopped before being posted. We urge netizens to rely on official announcements and not spread misinformation. The video's popularity surged, and the Bureau's spokesperson's refutation garnered 10,000 likes in just 5 minutes. Netizens, however, were riled up and presented video evidence. Strategic Deception spokesperson, this isn't a rumor. I have the original HD video. From catapult launch to ascent, it's all crystal clear. Damn, really? Bro, share the video. They'll pay for it. Me too. Strategic Deception spokesperson, sis, even if it's a rumor, it's just for fun. Huh. You're doing great, sis. We're just messing around. Don't take it seriously. The Bureau's post only fueled the video's virality. The fighter jet's turbine catapult launch caused a huge stir, with many holding the original footage. It was impossible to debunk. Ding. The fighter jet has caused a social sensation. Congratulations, host, you have received 1000 feedback points. Tip: feedback points will be automatically converted into modification points. Modification points can be used in the system shop to exchange for technology and equipment. The system notification echoed in his ears as Lin Feng lay in bed sound asleep. Outside, armored vehicles and police cars sped through the streets, casting Jinghai City in a red glow. The spectacle was nothing short of astonishing. An hour earlier, the city's security department had received the military's highest directive. Top forces were deployed to set up an encirclement, reaching designated positions and awaiting orders. With that single call, the Jinghai Security Department halted all ongoing cases, big or small, and went on high alert under command. The Security Department's SWAT Team Criminal Investigation Unit, all fully armed and in place. Chief, we've arrived at the designated positions. Ready for orders. The SWAT captain's voice rang firm through the communicator. In the mobile command post, the Security Department's highest chief wore a grave expression. Surround all streets around Sunshine Residential Area. Set up cordons. The Security Department acted swiftly. The director issued orders. The SWAT team was to set up cordons while the Criminal Investigation Unit cleared all vehicles and pedestrians from the surrounding streets. Director, the perimeter is sealed. Shall we move in immediately? The entire Jinghai City security system was mobilized, all to lock down this single residential complex. It must be a major case. Over the phone, the director's voice was hoarse, almost a roar. Move in on what? Hold your positions. The military is on its way. To be honest, the security director had received only one order from the military: lockdown Sunshine Residential Complex. Await further instructions. That meant their department was merely supporting the military operation. An hour later, over 80 armored vehicles formed another ring around Sunshine Complex, creating a truly impenetrable blockade. In the sky, more than 20 helicopters fully loaded with weaponry circled overhead. With a clang, the armored vehicle doors swung open, and one by one soldiers in camouflage emerged, armed with live ammunition. Special Forces. Unit 701, Building B, Sunshine Complex. In the kitchen, Lin's father and mother were busy preparing, making dumplings. Noticing the commotion outside, Lin's mother looked bewildered. Dear, what's going on out there? Why is our complex sealed off? Probably a military drill. Lin's father, startled by the scene, hastily closed the window. Out of sight, out of mind. From a military jeep, Zhang Chu personally opened the door for Minister Li. The commander rushed forward. Reporting, Minister. The 30 streets surrounding Sunshine Complex are completely sealed. As per the plan, the security department and special forces are in position, awaiting your orders. Zhang Chu glanced around. Even as an ace pilot long accustomed to military life, the scale of this operation made him swallow hard. That kid Lin Feng had really stirred things up this time. The security and military departments had launched a joint operation under the highest directive, cordoning off 30 streets around Sunshine Complex in no time. Not even a dog could get through. Li Dailai nodded. Everyone hold your positions. Send a small squad to accompany me upstairs. Minister, is that really necessary? Zhang Chu forced a smile. Sending an armed special forces squad up there. What if it scared Lin Feng's parents? Knowing Lin Feng's temperament, a blunder like that could backfire badly. Fair enough. Then everyone stays put. Zhang Chu, you come with me. Li Dailai understood that the real purpose of this grand show was to invite Lin Feng to meet with Elder Jin and Elder Wu. Turning it into an arrest would be far too unsightly. Unit 701, Building B, Sunshine Complex. Lin's mother had been watching the activity downstairs. Through the peephole, she saw two men in military uniforms at their door and immediately panicked. Dear, old Lin, come quick. Look at these men. Are they here to arrest our Lin Feng? Lin's father was more easygoing. How could that be? The doorbell rang. The elderly couple exchanged glances, their faces turning pale in an instant. What do we do? What do we do? They really are here to arrest our Lin Feng. Lin's mother was frantic, but fortunately Lin's father remained calm and steady. Don't panic. Our Lin Feng hasn't stolen or robbed anyone. Maybe they're just here to ask questions. Lin's father peered through the peephole and demanded, what is your business here? Hello, we represent the military. We need to discuss something with Comrade Lin Feng. The details are confidential. Would you be so kind as to open the door? Li Dailai spoke gently. Lin's father opened the door. Zhang Chu stepped forward, eagerly carrying 2 boxes of nutritional supplements he had prepared in advance. Hello, Auntie and Uncle. I'm Zhang Chu. Is Lin Feng home? Yes, he's home. Lin's father nodded. If they were really here to arrest Lin Feng, would they bring gifts? Shouldn't they be handcuffing him instead? So it must be fine. Probably just a routine inquiry. After getting permission from Lin's parents, Zhang Chu barged straight into Lin Feng's bedroom, only to find the rascal still sound asleep. Lin Feng, get your ass up. Who is it? What? Lin Feng, groggy with sleep, saw Zhang Chu at his door and assumed he was there about a refund. He jumped up immediately. Zhang Chu, we agreed no refunds or exchanges. And before the modification you said I could do whatever I wanted. Don't try to weasel out of it. Zhang Chu curled his lip. He really hadn't expected this. I said you could modify it as you saw fit. I didn't tell you to turn it into a real weapon. Get up. The minister is waiting outside. If you don't want this to get worse, come with me now. Lin Feng, confused, glanced out the window. Good heavens. More than 20 fully armed helicopters circled overhead, and countless armored vehicles and police cars had the complex surrounded. Anyone without a strong stomach would find this hard to handle. Lin Feng quickly threw on his clothes and found himself facing Li Dailai's almost scrutinizing gaze. No doubt about it. This was the guy. After digging up Lin Feng's file from the database, they knew everything. From his birth to his school performance, even how many girlfriends had. Fortunately, Lin Feng had a clean record, otherwise Li Dailai might have brought handcuffs. Hello, I'm Li Dailai, Minister of the Military District. He extended his hand, and Lin Feng shook it. Lin Feng. Holy cow. The military district minister had come to his door. Lin Feng now understood what was going on and shot Zhang Chu a look. Mom. Dad. Don't worry, it's fine. They'll go with them and call you later. With the military district minister going to such lengths, refusal was impossible. As they went downstairs, Zhang Chu whispered a lot in Lin Feng's ear. Even now the man still couldn't believe Lin Feng had modified that fighter jet. But one comment he heard was very satisfying. That fighter jet was truly amazing. A beast. Of course it was. With the system's data analysis and Lin Feng's meticulous welding and fine-tuning, how could it not be a beast? Without exaggeration, if circumstances allowed, Lin Feng could build a fighter capable of interstellar combat. Whatever the U.S., Japan Black Hawks or bombers, they were all garbage. I said, was all this really necessary? After winding their way out of the complex, Lin Feng was once again stunned. All this just to find him. Anyone would think they were hunting an international fugitive. Zhang Chu shrugged and patted Lin Feng on the back reassuringly. It was a top military directive. If I hadn't put in a word, they'd have rolled out the tanks. The helicopter landed smoothly on the military runway, and Lin Feng disembarked with Zhang Chu's assistance. Lin Feng, what are you up to? The balanced performance of the transport helicopter is still too poor. I have many improvement plans. Lin Feng was brimming with confidence. If the armed helicopter could maintain good stability, even in turbulent or gusty air, it would greatly reduce the airsickness rate for passengers like him. It was indeed a viable improvement. Zhang Chu's lips twitched uncontrollably. A fighter jet that had been damaged beyond repair had been transformed by Lin Feng into a next-generation superfighter. That was already outrageous enough. Now, without the nod of approval from Minister Li, no from Elders Jin and Wu, he dared not let Lin Feng modify anything else. Who knew what kind of trouble this rascal would stir up next? Hurry up, hurry up. Elders Jin and Wu are waiting for you. Zhang Chu dragged Lin Feng along. On the military runway, a large group of experts could be seen in the distance holding various measuring instruments and testing everything around. Something's wrong. Why are the data on the measuring instruments exceeding the standards? Since the indicators are inaccurate, how did it manage to take off smoothly? At a full Mach 5, ordinary steel frames wouldn't be sufficient to support it. This was precisely the issue the experts were contemplating. As for Elders Jin and Wu, after being repeatedly shocked by the inexplicable data presented by their assistants, their nerves had long gone numb. Now they didn't care about anything else, they just waited for Li Dalei to bring the person over for a direct confrontation. Old Wu, they're here. They're here. The person has arrived. All the top special forces in Jinghai City military region had been dispatched. If they couldn't even bring back one young man, it would be too embarrassing. Elders Jin and Wu hurriedly stood up, looking toward the group approaching them. Hands behind their backs, clad in Zhongshan suits, they exuded vigor and vitality. The young man in sportswear walking behind Li Dalei might very well be the future of the Dragon Country. Elder Jin, Elder Wu, the person has been brought back. Li Dalei stepped forward to report, but the two elders ignored him completely, walking straight up to Lin Feng. They looked him over from head to toe. So young, to be able to manufacture that kind of super fighter jet, mastering energy, turbine dynamics, balance, and so on, and to apply that knowledge. Wouldn't it take at least 40 or 50 years? Lin Feng looked like he was barely 20. Had he been learning since birth? Or was he a super genius with a photographic memory? Neither seemed realistic. Since this was scientific research, everything should be based on facts and data. Elder Jin extended his hand and shook Lin Feng's. Greetings, young friend. Was that super fighter jet truly built by you alone? Aye. Lin Feng opened his mouth, about to admit it readily, when a sharp pain shot through his palm. Damn, why did this old man suddenly squeeze so hard? Of course, Lin Feng was not one to be outdone. A man who spent his days modifying and working with machinery. His hands might not be as hard as iron pliers, but at least his grip strength wouldn't lose to an old man, right? Good, good, good. Whether it was because Lin Feng had squeezed him back, Elder Jin withdrew his hand and got straight to the point. Young friend, since you claim to have built this super fighter jet alone, this old man has a few questions that baffle me. I need your help to answer them. A test. Scientists always like pulling this trick, but Lin Feng wasn't intimidated. Ask away. Elders Jin and Wu, both meritorious figures, exchanged a glance, then took measuring instruments from several assistants. They fiddled with them as they explained. Come, young friend, explain to me what material the surface of this fighter jet is made of. Graphene, ultra-high molecular weight polyethylene, and Lin Feng answered without hesitation, smooth and natural. And what about these anomalous data? According to normal dynamics and gravity, it's completely inexplicable. And this energy source splitting water to produce hydrogen, which then forms water again in an infinite cycle. And how is that superconducting catalyst made? Science always had to be based on evidence, didn't it? Are you going to keep this up forever? Bombarded with a string of questions, Lin Feng looked impatient. Why don't I just demonstrate how the fighter jet is built right in front of you? Building a fighter jet would take at least a few months. Where would they find that kind of time? Elder Jin persisted, determined to get to the bottom of things. Young friend, if you can't explain it, it proves that the fighter jet wasn't built by you. And in the military, that constitutes leaking major military secrets. Lin Feng, what the hell? Trying to scare a kid. This old man sure had a way with words. So he couldn't answer, and they'd just slap a big charge on him. Fine, old man. Playing dirty. Lin Feng had never been afraid of anyone. All right, if you want me to answer your questions, that's not impossible. They'll give you an equation. If you can solve it, I'll answer whatever you ask. Even if you want me to build another fighter jet like this, no problem. Gasp. At this, not only Elders Jin and Wu, but even Li Dalei and the Research Institute professionals couldn't stand it anymore. Who do Elders Jin and Wu think they are? How profound is their knowledge? You brat, can't you stop bragging for once? Elders Jin and Wu are highly respected seniors. If you can answer, answer. If not, don't try to show off. Zhang Chu shot Lin Feng a displeased glare. It was one thing to joke around in private, but in front of so many research experts, and even before the two bigwigs Elders Jin and Wu, you dared to make such a bold claim. Who gave you the nerve? He, faced with all the skepticism, Lin Feng grinned. Got a pen and paper. Of course. Elders Jin and Wu were full of confidence. Come on. They had spent most of their lives in the Research Institute, dedicating everything to scientific endeavors. How could they fail to solve an equation? The pen and paper were handed to Lin Feng. Without hesitation, he knelt on the ground and began writing in front of everyone. Some symbolic characters were recognizable to the experts. What's this? Isn't this the simplest velocity equation, with some special factors mixed in? This problem? No, that's not right either. The further he wrote, the more off it seemed. A few minutes later, a sheet of paper was covered in dense characters and equations. Zhang Chu looked it over from start to finish, his head spinning. What the hell is all this? I can't understand a single thing. Zhang Chu began to doubt himself for the first time. Lin Feng, however, handed the paper to the two elders and patiently explained, I was afraid you two might not be able to solve it, so I wrote down the process. Just give me the answer. Also, this is a kinetic energy equation. A kinetic equation. It hardly seemed like one. The paper was densely covered with processes and thoughts, and for the assembled experts and academicians claiming they couldn't understand it was impossible. The key was that the two titans, Elder Jin and Elder Wu, were scrutinizing that single sheet of paper as if they wished to etch every word and symbol into their minds. Old Wu, the equation is sound, and it does hold true. But can you decipher the answer? At this moment, Elder Jin resembled a stumped schoolboy urgently seeking help from his deskmate. Elder Wu frowned, his aged face etched with deep thought. Perhaps due to the intense mental strain, beads of sweat had begun to appear on his forehead, a testament to the taxing nature of the problem. Old Jin, can a kinetic equation be written this way? Gravity, balanced forces, and other kinetic elements are all interwoven. The problem-solving process is correct, but the crux lies in the final answer. To solve it would likely require the auxiliary calculations of the most precise quantum computer. Good heavens! Besides, the experts and academicians who looked grim soldiers like Zhang Chu and Li Dalai were utterly bewildered. What nonsense was this? Just because Lin Feng had scribbled some arcane symbols, they needed a quantum computer. What a load of rubbish. Even Zhang Chu, an ace pilot, had no idea Lin Feng was this formidable. Wasn't he just a nobody who graduated from a second-rate university? Even if he had stumbled upon building a fighter jet, could his theoretical knowledge and wordplay possibly outshine Elders Jin and Wu? Impossible. Zhang Chu truly didn't believe it, and Li Dalai dared not speak much, fearing that Elders Jin and Wu might issue him a top-level directive out of displeasure. Elder Jin, Elder Wu, is this for real? A mere kinetic equation requiring a quantum computer. Quantum computers were meant for calculating precise data, high-end technology, running complex code. Things far too profound. A single kinetic equation casually written by an unknown young man, how could it be that absurd? The experts and academicians were utterly incredulous. With permission from Elders Jin and Wu, they took the paper and examined it. Some even crouched on the ground to calculate, scratching their heads and staring blankly at each other. It must be fake. A kinetic equation written this way is completely impossible. The sheer volume of calculations is enormous. For manual computation, it would take nearly half a month, and that's with a whole team. The talk was becoming more and more absurd. Li Dalai, as the military district head, had no time to watch these experts calculating on the floor. Elder Jin, Elder Wu, if you truly need that quantum computer you mentioned, I can have someone prepare it for you. No need. Before Elders Jin and Wu could reply, Lin Feng waved his hand and declared directly, it's just a kinetic equation. There's absolutely no need for a quantum computer. Solve it manually. Impossible. Exactly. Who does this brat think he is, spouting such nonsense? Even Elders Jin and Wu wouldn't dare say that. A swarm of experts and academicians stepped forward to refute him, none of them showing Lin Feng any respect. It was understandable. To become an expert and enter a research institute, one had to be a top scholar or a genius. Having some pride was only natural. Lin Feng grinned. Don't be hasty, everyone. I mean, no offense. I can understand why you can't solve it. Perhaps it's simply not your field. As he spoke, his gaze shifted to Elders Jin and Wu, who were deep in thought with furrowed brows. Both of you try a different approach. Disregard the current problem-solving steps and think in reverse. Eliminate conditions like air resistance, density, and pressure encountered during kinetic generation one by one. Focus on the equation itself. Dissect it, analyze it, and explain it using the most basic kinetic theory. Would that work? He offered meticulous guidance on the spot. As his words fell, Elders Jin and Wu, who had been lost in thought, suddenly had a flash of insight. They truly understood. Yes, this method works. Reverse elimination greatly reduces the computational load and shortens the calculation time. Elder Jin was quite excited, confirming that reverse deduction was feasible. However, Elder Wu remained pensive and confused. It can advance the process, but the final answer to the equation still can't be derived. Exactly. Lin Feng nodded solemnly and picked up the pen again, writing a long string of characters at the very end. This is the answer. It involves some supercatalysts and principles of energy permeability. Perhaps it's a bit beyond the syllabus. Don't worry about it. After a few years of immersion in kinetics and energy cycles, you'll be able to understand it. Of course, understand was the limit. Whether they could ultimately solve it was another matter entirely. The assembled experts and academicians pursed their lips, a mix of defiance and astonishment on their faces. How could an unknown young man know so much? Could he truly be a super genius? The one most shocked was Zhang Chu. He slowly sidled up to his top leader Li Dalei. Minister Li, do you think there are people in this world whose potential is suppressed by their environment and circumstances, but once these conditions are met, they unleash astonishing abilities? Wasn't this description a perfect match for Lin Feng? Li Dalei looked at elders Jin and Wu, who were utterly astounded and shaken. I can't guarantee such people exist, but the one you brought this time has certainly stirred up a major event. The term super catalyst danced in the minds of the two elders. In the fighter jet, water was split to produce hydrogen, which served as energy and then formed water again. An infinite cycle. How was it achieved? Elders Jin and Wu exchanged a look of mutual understanding. They were thoroughly impressed by Lin Feng's talent and now believed that this fighter jet, dubbed a Phantom, was indeed his creation. Elder Jin, his face full of excitement, looked at Lin Feng, again his voice trembling with anticipation. Young friend, could you tell this old man how you manufactured this super catalyst? Could you help produce some more? If this super catalyst could be mass-produced and applied to fighter jets, it would be a qualitative leap forward. Elders Jin and Wu had dedicated their lives to scientific research in their country. Even if it meant swallowing their pride, they would do anything to obtain the production method for this super catalyst. The super catalyst. Lin Feng knew these scientists would be interested in that thing, so he didn't beat around the bush. The super catalyst was manufactured in my civilian machinery factory. It's not impossible for me to help produce it, but materials, tools, expenses, and manpower. Young friend, whatever you need, just say the word. We will certainly satisfy you. Before Lin Feng could finish his sentence, Elder Jin gave his reply directly. This was precisely what he truly desired. Deal. Then follow me. I can produce the super catalyst right now. Hearing this, Elder Jin and Elder Wu did not hesitate in the slightest. For the sake of scientific research and national contribution, they paid no heed to the distance of the journey. They directly issued a top-level command ordering Li Dalei to dispatch a fully armed special forces unit to accompany them, ensuring both confidentiality and security. With two top-level commands in a single day, Li Dalei, the head of the Jinghai City Military District, remained perpetually on edge. A convoy of military jeeps drove into Lin Feng's civilian machinery factory. Fortunately, he had chosen a cheap location far from the city center, surrounded by sparse population and near the outskirts. Is this your machinery factory? Elder Jin stood outside the factory, which resembled other ordinary civilian facilities. A steel structure large in scale, but unremarkable in appearance. Could such a shabby factory really produce a super catalyst and modify that terrifying ghost-like fighter jet? Lin Feng was well aware of his factory's poor condition, so he paid no heed to the astonished gazes of the crowd. With a loud clang, he pushed open the factory door, and a blend of oil and steel assailed his senses. It wasn't unpleasant, but it was certainly overwhelming. Whoa, Lin Feng, when the hell did you build such a massive robotic arm? And all these high-tech gadgets, what are they? As the only lucky soul who had visited the factory before, Zhang Chu's mouth hung wide open, large enough to fit an egg. Especially that enormous robotic arm. High and intelligent, and clearly a piece of cutting-edge technology. So that's it. Who would have thought that within such a shabby machinery factory one could witness such a complete high-tech production line? Indeed, Lin Feng's machinery factory as a whole was a production line, comprehensive and advanced. Some of the technological operations, like robotic arms and instruments, could only be seen in the most cutting-edge military factories of the Dragon Kingdom. Young friend, can you start producing the catalyst now? How long will it take? We can wait. If they could witness the production process of the super catalyst with their own eyes, the two elders would gladly wait as long as necessary. This was a true opportunity that money and time could not buy. Lin Feng looked at the two elders, whose eyes burned with eagerness and anticipation, knowing they sought the nation's betterment. He simply flipped the switch. It won't take long. An hour should suffice. An hour. Elder Jin and Elder Wu stared at each other in disbelief. Even the most advanced military factory in the Dragon Kingdom would need about 10 hours to produce a catalyst. And Lin Feng's shabby little factory could do it in just an hour. Seeing Lin Feng start bragging again, Zhang Chu couldn't hold back. Lin Feng, can you stop making trouble for your brother? Take it slow if you have to, but don't exaggerate. Who's exaggerating? Lin Feng's temper flared. This was an insult to him and to the system. Zhang Chu, think about that scrap metal you tossed me last month, and then think about the one I fixed up for you. Do you think I was blowing smoke when I said I could do it in half a month? Come on. How powerful do you think my system is? Zhang Chu. He was left speechless. It wasn't that Zhang Chu couldn't stand his brother's brilliance or success. But with elders Jin and Wu, the big leaders, standing right there, if you tone it down a bit, even if something goes wrong, it won't be so embarrassing. Saying 1 hour. If it really couldn't be produced in an hour, that would be a huge boast. Fine. If worst came to worst, Zhang Chu could always speak up for him. Moreover, judging by the way elders Jin and Wu looked at Lin Feng, and their eagerness to dismantle the production line, time probably wasn't their primary concern. Old Wu, this robotic arm is really impressive. And these instruments, excellent. Indeed. As Zhang Chu had guessed, Elders Jean and Wu didn't care about the time at all. Even if the super catalyst took 3 days and 3 nights to produce, they would watch with wide eyes. This was a crucial scientific achievement. Watching the two elders act strangely, occasionally bursting into hearty laughter, Lin Feng returned to the factory room to catch up on sleep. About half an hour later, Zhang Chu rushed and excitedly yanked Lin Feng up and patted his back in exhilaration and joy. Lin Feng, you sly dog, you actually did it. What now? What's the matter? Lin Feng was groggy with sleep. Fortunately, he was in good shape, or Zhang Chu's slaps might have crippled him. In less than an hour, that super catalyst. You actually produced it in less than an hour. Zhang Chu was beside himself with excitement. Elders Jean and Wu, though they didn't mind the time, had based their patience on the premise that the super catalyst could actually be produced. Now that the super catalyst had indeed been produced, and in less than an hour, these two meritorious senior leaders were utterly stunned. Old Wu, whether it's that super new fighter jet or the speed at which this super catalyst is produced, this Lin Feng is truly a talent. Indeed. Back in the day when Elders Jean and Wu were Lin Feng's age, they were still pondering over their graduation theses and how to choose a topic. Look at him now. The gap was immediately apparent. No comparison, no harm. Compared to Lin Feng, he was the true super genius, the intellectual. Soon Zhang Chu dragged Lin Feng out of the room. Elders Jean and Wu didn't mind that Lin Feng looked like he had just woken up. They patted his shoulder, their eyes full of admiration. Young friend, what you said was absolutely true. The super catalyst, you actually produced it. Elder Jean spoke with earnest sincerity. If the super catalyst was the core of that ghost-like super new fighter jet, then mass-producing more of those jets would make the Dragon Kingdom invincible, wouldn't it? Undetectable by radar, untraceable by cruise missiles. Shoot it down with the naked eye. Huh. At full speed, it could reach Mach 5. Try shooting it down with the naked eye. Could you even hit it? Even a titanium alloy dog eye wouldn't work. After understanding the terror of that super new fighter jet and witnessing the super catalyst take shape, Elder Jean's every cell trembled uncontrollably. He had a goal now, a desire that surged in his mind, an objective he yearned to achieve at any cost. All right. If you want this super catalyst, it's not impossible. Just pay a certain fee. Lin Feng was exploiting the situation. Although the raw materials for the catalyst were leftovers from building the fighter jet, they were still the result of his meticulous processing and careful operation, weren't they? Such a plump leak. Why not harvest it? Zhang Chu shot Lin Feng a glance, the smile on his face instantly freezing and stiffening. He never expected this. Lin Feng, you rascal. How dare he? To so unabashedly ask Elder Jean and Elder Wu for money. Even Li Dailai, the head of the Jingheim military district, and Zhang Chu's top boss, wouldn't dare do that. Hey, Comrade Zhang Chu, were military personnel, after all. Paying for goods is only natural. What are you doing? Elder Jean said seriously. Young friend, since you know Zhang Chu, just ask him for the money later. He'll notify Minister Li. That's good. Lin Feng grinned. The old man wasn't bad, as long as he paid the fee. Ahem. Elder Jean cleared his throat and continued. Young friend, I'd like to invite you on behalf of the Supreme Research Institute of Dragon Country to cooperate with our Dragon Academy of Sciences. What do you think? Cooperate with the Dragon Academy of Sciences? Couldn't they hold out any longer? Were they already extending an olive branch? Lin Feng pondered. The Dragon Academy of Sciences did sound pretty good, doing classified work, contributing to the military and the nation. His parents would be proud to talk about it. By the way, young friend, rest assured about the salary. There's absolutely no problem there. Elder Jean and Elder Wu of the Dragon Academy of Sciences guaranteed with a pat on their chests. As long as they could invite Lin Feng to cooperate, the cost was no issue. At this moment, Lin Feng remained silent. Zhang Chu patted his shoulder. Lin Feng, what are you thinking? The Dragon Academy of Sciences. That's practically the highest level research institute in Dragon Country. Cooperating with them would be something to brag about in the future, wouldn't it? Yeah, it would be impressive. But I've never thought about cooperating with the Dragon Academy of Sciences. Isn't it good enough for me to just modify motorcycles and live a peaceful life on my own? Lin Feng's words left Zhang Chu thunderstruck. A peaceful life. He couldn't believe his ears. He gave Lin Feng a fighter jet that was a wreck, and the guy rebuilt it into a brand new super fighter. And now in less than an hour, he could produce a super catalyst. At this point, it felt like cranking a tractor starter with all your might halfway to ignition, and then you let go. Lin Feng, are you sure you're not joking? No. Lin Feng shook his head, speaking naturally. He really hadn't thought about selflessly dedicating himself to Dragon Country. Wasn't it fine for him to stay as he was? Esteemed elders, thank you for thinking so highly of me, but I still haven't considered cooperating with the Dragon Academy of Sciences. My apologies. Cooperation was just a polite term. Without something substantial, if Lin Feng really agreed, they'd probably give him an ideological lecture. Working like a dog for a base salary. Elder Jean and Elder Wu exchanged glances. This kid refused too directly, leaving no room for bargaining. But the production cooperation for the super catalyst had to be secured. After all, Elder Jean and Elder Wu were meritorious figures in Dragon Country, with high authority. There was no way they'd let a genius like Lin Feng slip away. And they certainly wouldn't give up on the super catalyst. After a brief discussion, Elder Jean stepped forward and laid out the terms. Young friend Lin Feng, don't rush to refuse. Old Wu and I have discussed it. To show our sincerity from the Dragon Academy of Sciences, we've decided to offer you a Dragon Country Superlimit Black card, the Jinghai Military Factory, and you can contact us anytime for any needs. Holy moly, a Dragon Country Superlimit Black card. That thing. And the Jinghai Military Factory. What mechanical factory in Jinghai could match the scale and sophistication of a military factory? Lin Feng's eyes widened. Under heavy reward, there's always a reckless man. If not, it just wasn't tempting enough. Before Zhang Chu could dissuade him, Lin Feng nodded, looking reluctant. If you insist, then I'll reluctantly agree. Zhang Chu barely suppressed the urge to beat Lin Feng up, while Elder Jean and Elder Wu nodded with satisfaction and relief. Young people. Given Elder Jean and Elder Wu's authority in Dragon Country, getting a superlimit black card for Lin Feng was no problem. What they truly valued was Lin Feng himself. Young friend Lin Feng raised to a pleasant cooperation. Elder Jean and Elder Wu carefully took the super catalyst from the production line and left with the military special forces. Watching the military jeep speed away, Lin Feng was all smiles. This was the real deal, the big business. He'd practically never have to worry about food and clothing. Zhang Chu slapped Lin Feng on the shoulder. Well, now you've got a superlimit black card and the most high-end military factory in Jinghai. Others would have to struggle for years to get such things. Lin Feng had negotiated it all with a mere smile. Comparing people was truly infuriating. Lin Feng grinned. It's only right, only right. By the way, Zhang Chu, you haven't told me yet. How's the Ghost Fighter jet I spent so many sleepless nights building? Was it fun to fly? He only found out later while scrolling through Douyin. Who'd have thought the jet he thought was just for display had been catapult launched? It even alarmed the entire Jinghai military district, who along with the National Security Department surrounded the Sunshine community just to find him. Oomph. Lin Feng, you have the nerve to ask. Don't you know how powerful that thing you built is? Thinking back on the thrill and danger. If Zhang Chu hadn't been a genuine ace pilot, it would have been all over. Luckily, it was a close call. Just tell me if it was fun. Do you want to fly something even more badass than that fighter? A man should have some hobbies and pursuits. You can build something even more badass. You're bluffing. Zhang Chu might not know much theory, but had flown plenty of planes and fighters. Believe it or not, when I build it, you'll be the first to have a blast. After a day of hustling, Lin Feng hailed a taxi and headed home. As the car approached the entrance of his residential compound, it suddenly dawned on him. Damn it. He had forgotten to call his parents to let them know he was safe. The military district and the Ministry of Public Security had made such a huge commotion, his parents must be worried sick. Besides, since he had been taken away by military forces, what would the neighbors think of him? This was troublesome. What if everyone thought he was some kind of international fugitive? Bang. Clatter. Lost in thought, Lin Feng, sitting in the taxi, was disturbed by a cacophony of noise. The driver pulled the car over to the side of the road. Sir, I'm really sorry, but it seems there's some event going on inside. The car can't get through. That's all right. Lin Feng paid the fare, got out, and looked toward the entrance of the compound. It was a bustling scene. Adults and children alike were either holding flowers or carrying flower baskets, beating drums and gongs with great fervor. What's going on? Is someone getting married? Lin Feng found it utterly baffling. He had planned to slip through unnoticed, but that now seemed impossible. I'll forget it. A clear conscience laughs at false accusations. He strolled leisurely toward the entrance. When he appeared in public view, the neighbors, both young and old, began to stir with excitement. The scene was almost as grand as a reception for a top-tier celebrity. Wait, what the hell is that banner? Lin Feng squinted to read it. At first glance it was unremarkable, but then, well, there were too many people to see clearly. All he could make out was something about welcoming a people's hero home. Lin Feng, great hero, Xiao Feng, I never knew you were this capable. The city leadership personally came to visit our compound today. What the hell? Lin Feng was dumbfounded. The city leadership came to visit. Shouldn't it be the military special forces, the SWAT team from the Ministry of Public Security, the Criminal Investigation Unit, along with over 80 armored vehicles and more than 20 armed helicopters? In an instant, Lin Feng was surrounded by a group of children, the property manager, and a large crowd of unfamiliar faces behind them. Some were putting flower wreaths on him, others patting his shoulders. Xiao Feng, you've really made your parents proud. Andy Liu, what's going on here? In the crowd, Lin Feng finally spotted a familiar face. Andy Liu from the same building. The two of them barely managed to squeeze out of the crowd. She practically had to shout to be heard. Xiao Feng, don't you know? They made such a big fuss today. After you left, the city leadership came down with a whole slew of reporters. Long lenses, short lenses, conducting interviews and taking notes. Later we found out that it was Yu Xiaofeng who saved the great commander of the Jinghai military district. They went to all this trouble just to thank you, Lin Feng. After pondering for a while, he understood. The Jinghai military district was covering for him. They had forcefully shoved a credit onto him. Lin Feng pushed through the crowd and headed home on his own. As expected, his parents were both worried and delighted. As for the story about saving the military commander, Lin Feng glossed over it with a few casual words. Mom, Dad, I might be changing jobs in a few days. He'll be working at the military district, so I might not come back at night, Lin Feng said bluntly. Although the Jinghai military district wasn't far from their home, going back and forth would only make his parents worry. Lin's father nodded. All right, son, just focus on your work. Then you won't come back at night. Why are you working at the military district? Is it safe? Oh, woman, what nonsense are you talking? Before Lin Feng could explain, his father had already started lecturing his mother. Our Xiaofeng has made something of himself. The big shots in the military district have given him a good job. This is a good thing. Let me tell you, our family is now under the close watch of the higher-ups. Woman, don't you mess this up. A speech worthy of a leader. Lin Feng smiled without a word, surprised that his father could be so enlightened. After a few days of rest, Lin Feng spent most of his time catching up on sleep. Occasionally, he noticed that the system's feedback prompts were sounding off incessantly. The footage of the Ghost fighter jet catapult launching at the Science and Technology Museum was still circulating. Although official pressure had significantly reduced its popularity, this wave of attention still generated a considerable amount of shock points. Converted into modification points, it was no small sum. That day, as agreed, Lin Feng got into a military jeep. Later, he met Zhang Chu, who had come to welcome him aboard a helicopter. How was your rest these past few days? Zhang Chu was in high spirits. During these few days of rest, Elder Jean and Elder Wu had been constantly reminding each other, always keeping Lin Feng in their thoughts, afraid that the kid might go back on his word and run off halfway. In fact, Minister Li had even considered bringing Lin Feng over early to avoid any trouble. It was fine. Lin Feng was thoughtful. He still found the transport helicopter too noisy and its stability lacking. He might have to modify it sometime. By the way, are there other people at the Jinghai military factory, or is it just me? The Jinghai military factory must be quite large. Zhang Chu shouted over the noise. It's about the size of several football fields. Anyway, Elder Jean and Elder Wu have given you the authority to use it. Usually there are some designers and experts doing research and design in there. It's your turf, do as you please. Elder Jean and Elder Wu had given him a great deal of authority. Zhang Chu was also curious about what promises the two elders had made to Minister Li. Whatever the conditions, as long as there were written provisions, Minister Li would approve them without even a second glance. The helicopter landed, and they got into an off-road vehicle, driving for a while on the runway before reaching the military factory. It had to be said, it was truly magnificent, and being within the Jinghai military district, safety was absolutely guaranteed. All right, you can tinker around here. I have other missions, so we'll be off. Contact me by phone if anything comes up. After settling, Lin Feng and Zhang Chu left. The military factory, as large as several football fields, had fallen into Lin Feng's hands. He roamed through the vast workshop, greeted by the familiar scent of steel. As he walked at the central location, Lin Feng spotted an armored vehicle that looked impressive both in appearance and model. This armored vehicle has already been modified by someone. Lin Feng patted the hood of the armored vehicle. With the system's help, he quickly discerned some details. The power system has been modified, as have the steel plates, bulletproof glass, and these tires. Identifying each part, Lin Feng's hands itched. He casually grabbed a toolbox and began disassembling it completely. The Jinghai military factory, as the most advanced and best-equipped mechanical plant, only admitted top-tier intellectuals. Top-level engineers. Pick any one of them, and they could design tanks or modify cannons. Incredibly skilled. At this moment, Gao Xiong, a top engineer at the military factory, was leading a group of assistants and senior engineers from other departments on a tour, and more importantly, to showcase his latest technology, which had taken months to design. Wow, Senior Engineer Gao, this military factory of yours is really impressive. Tanks, transport planes, and all these armored vehicles. Since the factory was also responsible for modifications, and tanks or transport planes would come here for maintenance when issues arose. As a top engineer, Gao Xiong naturally handled all of this, considering it a way to keep his hands busy, continuously developing and modifying new creations. Everyone, make yourselves at home. Feel free to look around. This is nothing special, just some conventional military hardware. Today, the real highlight is my latest modified technology. Gao Xiong was brimming with confidence. After months of research, he was very satisfied with this modified creation. He even believed it could secure a decent ranking in a military innovation competition. Really? I've heard that Senior Engineer Gao has been working behind closed doors. Exactly. And he used those rare materials. It made my eyes green with envy. The crowd's curiosity was instantly piqued. Since this was an exchange for mutual learning, more communication and understanding were naturally beneficial. How well, since you all know, I won't keep you in suspense. This way, please. Gao Xiong was confident, believing that in terms of knowledge modification techniques and design concepts, he was second to none. Clang, clang, rumble. The military factory was vast. After walking for about 10 minutes, they finally neared the central area, which was filled with many novel contraptions compared to the periphery. Good heavens, that tank has been modified, hasn't it? Look at this caliber and these tracks, even the periscope has been upgraded. Hey wait, Senior Engineer Gao, what's that burning smell? Is something on fire? And that noise, what's going on? The visitors were all highly educated, having dealt extensively with machinery. The clanging sound seemed like a fight was breaking out. Gao Xiong frowned deep in thought. Don't worry, let me check. Following the source of the noise, a sudden sense of dread washed over him, and he quickened his pace. He prayed it wasn't his modified armored vehicle that had a problem. Clang, clang. The steel plate is damn sturdy. Forget it. Let's just use the cutter. Lin Feng, drenched in sweat, tossed aside the pair of pliers and grabbed the cutter. The ruckus finally drew Gao Xiong's attention. The invited assistants and engineers exchanged bewildered glances, their mouths agape wide enough to hold a fist. Senior Engineer Gao, who is this person? All eyes turned to Gao Xiong, some complex, some sympathetic, and even a few pitying. It was obvious to anyone. Among the pile of armored vehicles, the one Lin Feng was dismantling was different. Could it be Gao Xiong's modified one? Good grief, only the chassis was left, and even the door had been removed. Gao Xiong's face darkened. Perhaps due to the noise of the cutter, Lin Feng hadn't noticed the crowd behind him. Staring at the scattered wreckage, Gao Xiong was dumbfounded. My months of painstaking work, the armored vehicle I painstakingly modified and designed. My magnificent armored vehicle. Where had my big armored vehicle gone? Stop! Stop! Stop right now, damn it! Unable to contain himself, Gao Xiong charged forward recklessly, as if his own child had been abducted. Lin Feng noticed the newcomer and stopped the cutter, looking utterly confused. Hey man, who are you? Can't you see I'm busy here? Whatever it is, wait a minute. Go play somewhere else. Good heavens! What were they hearing? Who was this brash young man who not only dismantled Senior Engineer Gao's meticulously modified armored vehicle, but also nonchalantly claimed to be busy and told him to go play? Was he crazy, or was everyone else crazy? Gao Xiong was furious. He was the top engineer at the military factory. Who was this reckless kid? What did you say? Kid, do you know who I am? Do you know who modified the armored vehicle you're dismantling? Do you have any idea how much effort I put into it? Gao Xiong was on the verge of a breakdown. That armored vehicle was his precious treasure. He would have slept with it if he could. Who the hell was this fool who just tore it apart without a word? Oh, so you modified this armored vehicle? Lin Feng scratched his head. He couldn't deny the awkwardness, but he decided to be honest. Your modification of this armored vehicle just doesn't work. Sure, your powertrain does increase the horsepower, but the fuel consumption and this massive shell. Are you afraid it'll go too fast? To put it bluntly, if this modified armored vehicle hit the road, it wouldn't even be as fast as my modified Wuling minivan. People would think it's just an iron box. Lin Feng was straightforward, especially after crossing over and entering the mechanical modification industry. He was completely immersed in it. If you're going to modify something, make it the best, make it the most awesome. The key point was that this modification was no different from not modifying it. It couldn't even outrun my Wuling minivan. Veins bulged on Gao Xiong's forehead, his eyes bloodshot. If looks could kill, Lin Feng would have died 1,000 times over. What an arrogant brat. How dare you say Senior Engineer Gao's modified armored vehicle is useless? And that Wuling minivan of yours, are you bragging? If you don't know what you're talking about, keep your mouth shut. Senior Engineer Gao is a renowned top engineer. Exactly. You dismantled his hard work. Just apologize, and he's not unreasonable. Amidst the chatter, Lin Feng was painted as a villain, while Gao Xiong was elevated to a gentleman. Gao Xiong took a deep breath, trying to calm his rage. Breaking into a military factory and dismantling military equipment without authorization. Do I need to spell out the consequences? What? You mean to court-martial me? Lin Feng smiled faintly. Wasn't it just dismantling an armored vehicle? Gao Xiong, too lazy to waste words, directly called the relevant person in charge. When he learned it was a newcomer who had dismantled his armored vehicle. Initially, the person was furious, but upon hearing the name, Lin Feng, the person in charge wilted like a mouse seeing a cat. Engineer Gao? Isn't it just dismantling an armored vehicle? There are plenty of armored vehicles in the military factory. Just modify another one. Gao Xiong, where was that solemn promise to punish the offender? What about reporting him for disciplinary action? How could he change his tune so fast? All right, that's it. I have tasks to attend to, so we'll hang up now. Before Gao Xiong could speak further, the line went dead with 2 beeps, leaving no chance to respond. Gao Xiong glanced at Lin Feng. Dismantling the armored vehicle was a minor issue, but he had to save face. After all, he was one of the few top engineers in the military factory. After a moment's thought, he dialed the office of the Jinghai City Military District Director. Hello, who is this? Li Dale's voice carried a hint of impatience. Recently, the Ghost fighter jet modified by Lin Feng had been trending wildly online. Although officials had stepped in to suppress it, it was only temporary. Besides, the official statements might fool others, but could the top brass of other military factories and research institutes fail to see through them? Calls poured in one after another, some expressing concern, others using bribes or threats. Li Dale was swamped. Of course, Lin Feng was unaware of this. He only knew that the feedback points from the system were steadily increasing, converting into modification points. A considerable sum. Gao Xiong cleared his throat twice and spoke directly. Hello. I am Gao Xiong, a top engineer at the Jinghai City Military Factory. I have discovered an unauthorized intruder in the factory, and without permission, they have privately dismantled military equipment. It's just one person now under our control. Upon hearing this, Li Dale's already displeased face grew even more irritated. Fine. So every Tom, Dick, and Harry thinks they can take advantage of my Jinghai military district, huh? Gao Xiong, secure the scene. They'll bring people over personally. Good. Hanging up, Gao Xiong felt a surge of pride. This was more like it. Kid, you'd better stay put. From where you came, why you illegally broke into the military factory and dismantled equipment. Explain it all from start to finish. Clang, clang. As Gao Xiong spoke with fervor, Lin Feng continued wielding his wrench. Soon a round tire was detached. About 10 minutes later, 4 or 5 SUVs and a fully equipped Special Forces unit stormed into the military factory. Director Li, Zhang Chu, rushing over breathlessly, asked, "What's going on? I heard there's an intruder in the factory. Any casualties? Is Lin Feng still inside? Could someone have traced the Ghost fighter news back to him?" Li Dale shuddered. He couldn't be sure about others, but if it involved Lin Feng, it was possible. After all, before leaving, Elder Jean and Elder Wu had instructed him to ensure Lin Feng's safety at all costs, even declaring that Lin Feng was a super genius. He was the future of the Dragon Nation's Academy of Sciences, the hope of the entire Dragon Country. Quick, Zhang Chu, follow me. Lin Feng must not be harmed. Li Dale and Zhang Chu stormed in with determination. To protect Lin Feng's safety, they even grabbed 2 sets of gear themselves. When they saw the factory floor littered with wreckage and the fully armed Special Forces soldiers exchanging bewildered glances, Li Dale was confused. Where's the intruder? The one who dismantled military equipment. Stop looking. Before anyone could respond, Lin Feng crawled out from under the remaining chassis of the armored vehicle. Director Liam, the intruder you mentioned. You dismantled the armored vehicle too? Yes. Quick and clear answers. Good. Li Dale shot a glance of approval at the Special Forces squad leader. Fortunately, when they had gone to find Lin Feng before, this squad knew what he looked like. Otherwise, the joke would have gone too far. Dismissing the Special Forces, Li Dale took off his gear and approached Lin Feng with concern, patting his shoulder. Are you hurt? No. Gao Xiong. What's going on? Director Li knows this young punk, and they seem to be on good terms. Could this be a case of family fighting family? Glad you're okay. There's been a misunderstanding. Let me explain. Li Dale walked over to Gao Xiong and the other engineers and said solemnly, Engineer Gao, it's a misunderstanding. This young comrade is new here. His name is Lin Feng, and he specializes in design and modification. You'll be working together from now on. A newcomer. The group exchanged incredulous looks. So this arrogant, big-talking young man was actually a new hire. So he's an engineer too. Director Li, what technical expertise does this new comrade have? Our factory needs innovative, high-level talent. Li Dale frowned. Was this guy trying to tell him how to do his job? Director Li, don't be angry. Let me explain. Zhang Chu knew these engineers and experts. They were all arrogant, thinking themselves above others. Hadn't Elder Jean and Elder Wu brought a batch like that not long ago? Those so-called experts and academicians had all been humbled by a single kinetic equation Lin Feng had casually tossed out. Ahem. Zhang Chu cleared his throat, then puffed out his chest and addressed the group. Let me answer your questions. Comrade Lin Feng is not an engineer, nor does he have your prestigious academic backgrounds. Then how? Hold on. Let me finish. Zhang Chu savored the moment as if bathed in glory. You all know about the Ghost fighter jet at the Jinghai City Science and Technology Museum exhibition, right? Lin Feng built it. Gasps filled the air. All eyes turned to Lin Feng, who was yawning. Him. Also, aren't you curious about Lin Feng's position? I recall a senior comrade was transferred from our Jinghai military factory a few days ago, right? Hints showing off? I admire no one but you, Zhang Chu. Watching Gao Xiong and the others reveal looks of shock, Li Dale waved his hand. After all, they were all from the Jinghai military district. He had to treat everyone fairly, didn't he? All right, it was just a misunderstanding. Everyone disperse. Lin Feng, come with me. I have something to say to you. Lin Feng removed the last tire from the armored vehicle before slowly following. Throughout this, the look in Gao Xiong and the others' eyes was indescribable. Outside the military factory, the two found an open space. Li Dale clasped his hands behind his back. Lin Feng, thinking of what the two elders Jean and Wu had instructed, a smile spread across Li Dale's rugged face. For all needs within the military factory, the materials and supplies to produce the super catalyst, you can report to Zhang Chu. The military district will cover the expenses. Additionally, regarding that phantom fighter jet, Elder's Gene and Wu, hope you can write a detailed design and modification report when you have time. Of course, an operation manual would be even better. Thinking of that phantom fighter jet, it was truly formidable. Among all the pilots in the Jinghai military district, only Zhang Chu had the guts to fly it. Mentioning the unconventional catapult takeoff, the 180-degree in-place turn, and the many maneuvers that baffled scientists and defied common understanding. Li Dale finally understood why Elders Gene and Wu valued this young man so much. Lin Feng rubbed his nose. It was good to be valued and appreciated by the leadership. Everything was smooth sailing. No problem, Minister Li. Leave it all to me. Once the design is ready, you'll hand it over to Zhang Chu. With the conversation concluded, Lin Feng was tired from dismantling the armored vehicle and intended to go back and catch up on sleep. But then, Gao Xiong like a ghost clung tightly to Lin Feng's heels. What is it? Just because I dismantled your armored vehicle? Is it really that serious? Gao Xiong was lost and thought his expression very serious. Minister Li was right. That ultra-new fighter jet like a phantom, you built it. Yeah, got a problem. Lin Feng instinctively stepped back a few paces, feeling that this guy's gaze was distinctly different. Good. Today you dismantled my modified armored vehicle. At the military industry competition, well, compete again. They'll show you just how weak you are. With that, he stormed off. Lin Feng was utterly bewildered from start to finish. This guy's mind didn't seem right. All researchers were the same. Returning to his quarters following the instructions of Jinghai Military District Minister Li Dale, he sat at the desk and wrote a report on the design concept and philosophy of the Phantom fighter jet. It also included an operation plan for the Phantom fighter jet, very detailed, covering everything from procedures to emergency handling. After finishing these, Lin Feng lay down on the bed and slept. In the following days, he focused solely on modifications specifically for the armored vehicle that had been dismantled into a pile of parts. Lin Feng figured since it was already taken apart, he might as well do a simple modification to use as a means of transport within the military district. Ding. Detected remnants of an armored vehicle awaiting upgrade and modification. Does the host wish to proceed with the upgrade and modification? Once the idea formed, the system indeed responded. Modify. Ding. Modification plan generating. Modification plan 1, supersonic hydrogen kinetic armored vehicle. Required materials, super catalyst nickel chromium metal smelting vector thrust device. Features supersonic speed, energy circulation. Modification plan 2, nuclear heavy armor vehicle. Required materials, nuclear reactor tungsten chromium alloy. Features strong defense capable of resisting nuclear blasts. Modification plan 3, super ejection reaction armored vehicle. Modification plan 4, a modification plan 5. A pale blue holographic interface displayed numerous modification plans. Lin Feng's scalp tingled. The system was still as comprehensive, still as insane. The supersonic hydrogen kinetic armored vehicle had an energy system similar to the Phantom fighter jet, using hydrogen propulsion, water, splitting supercatalysts, etc., with an emphasis on supersonic speed. Plan 2 was obviously tempting for its ability to withstand a nuclear blast, but Lin Feng didn't plan to choose it. He wasn't ready to touch a nuclear reactor yet. So he kept browsing. After a while, he found a modification plan that perfectly suited his tastes and satisfaction. This one. Ding. Selecting this modification plan requires 3,000 modification points. Does the host wish to proceed with the modification? Of course, modify it. Only 3,000 modification points. The Phantom fighter jet exhibition had earned Lin Feng a substantial amount. With the modification plan in hand, the next step was to work behind closed doors. Using the high-tech instruments and equipment in the military factory greatly accelerated the modification progress. Perhaps because Zhang Chu's blunt words had truly stung Gao Xiong's pride. From then on, Gao Xiong never appeared before Lin Feng again. This saved a lot of trouble. Lin Feng focused entirely on the modification, sometimes pulling all-nighters. Whenever he thought of the description in the system's modification plan, it was absolutely mind-blowing, wasn't it? Lin Feng instantly lost his drowsiness and rolled up his sleeves to get to work. During this time, Zhang Chu visited several times merely to check on what Lin Feng was doing on behalf of Minister Li Dale. Even while busy with the modification, Lin Feng didn't forget the cooperation with the Dragon Science Institute. Wasn't it just producing super catalysts? That was simple. He just needed to design a production line. As for that Phantom fighter jet, as far as Lin Feng knew, it had been placed in an important and secret military base by the Jinghai Military District. Except for a few high-ranking leaders in the military district who had the authority to inspect it, Lin Feng also had the same access, which was reassuring. One day, as Lin Feng was assembling the modified armored vehicle, a thought suddenly popped into his mind. Since the Phantom fighter jet could evade radar and detector scans, with a speed of Mach 5, catapult takeoff 180-degree turns, and so on. Its performance and defense were impressive and very Phantom-like. Except for one thing. A fighter jet, the emphasis should be on combat, right? When Lin Feng initially chose that modification plan, the features column didn't include terms like powerful in combat. Instead, it emphasized radar evasion and being Phantom-like. Lin Feng, who always pursued perfection, felt uneasy thinking about this. Being an invisible, intangible Phantom was fine, but what if? What if the Phantom wielded a gleaming scythe? Untraceable, capable of stealth, yet able to deliver a fatal blow to the enemy at the critical moment. That was what Lin Feng wanted, right? Performance is fine in all aspects, but there's a lack in attack. For instance, modifying it with tracking fire coverage, precision bombing, and so on. Navigating through layers of barriers, Lin Feng deeply experienced the severity of Jinghai City's militarized management. Fortunately, with the privileges granted by Elder Jean and Elder Wu, he had green lights almost all the way. Engineer Lin, the base ahead is it? Thanks. Lin Feng strode forward, finally seeing the Phantom fighter he had modified. The feeling was like seeing his own child. The Phantom fighter, improved by the system's proposed plan, was truly fierce and handsome. Hello, comrade. I need to take this Phantom fighter out for further modifications. Could you help unlock it? Lin Feng turned to look at the guard on duty nearby. The Phantom fighter involved major military secrets, so such strict high-level security was only natural. The guard recognized Lin Feng. In fact, there was no one in the Jinghai City military region who didn't know him. After that earlier misunderstanding, Minister Li of the military region had ordered Lin Feng's file to be classified. Engineer Lin, we have no problem unlocking the Phantom fighter, but modifications. Elders Jean and Wu had personally stated that before the military industry competition began, no one was to touch it without their permission. Troublesome. What's the matter? I built this fighter myself. What's wrong with wanting to reforge it? It's like this. Engineer Lin, Elders Jean and Wu issued an order. Without their consent, no one can alter the Phantom fighter, not even a single screw. So that was it. Lin Feng understood. It seemed Elders Jean and Wu intended to use this Phantom fighter for some military industry competition. All right. And there was that Gao Xiong who had bragged about battling Lin Feng in the competition. A top engineer, after all. Everyone had some temper. Well then, I really do want to improve the Phantom fighter again. How about you contact Minister Li and ask him to help relay the message? Calling Minister Li directly and asking him to pass on the message. Only Lin Feng could say such a thing. However, Lin Feng was valued by the two great figures, Elder Jean and Elder Wu. The guard didn't dare to neglect him. What if Lin Feng's modifications actually produced something remarkable? Soon the guard managed to contact Li Dalai. Upon learning of Lin Feng's idea, he immediately set aside his tasks and rushed over. Out of breath from the bumpy ride, Lin Feng, what do you mean by modifying the Phantom fighter again? Elders Jean and Wu had said it was to be used in the military industry competition. Moreover, the two elders were confident, clearly guaranteeing that once the Phantom fighter was in the competition, it would surely win, defeating the fighter painstakingly designed by Elder Jean of the military academy. It carried great expectations. That was why Li Dalai rushed over as soon as he got the news. The Phantom fighter couldn't afford any mishap. Minister Li, please don't worry. I have my own ideas. The Phantom fighter's various performances are good. Radar evasion, detection, countermeasures, all up to standard. But I've been thinking its combat capabilities seem a bit lacking. Lin Feng said as much. He had chosen the Phantom fighter from the many plans the system provided precisely because it was ordinary and low-key. Now that it had been discovered by chance, there was no need to keep hiding. Modification was about pursuing ultimate perfection. What Lin Feng truly wanted was a Phantom fighter that could weave through countless machines and bomb with fluid grace. A ghost in the night, the best among phantoms. Li Dalai smiled bitterly. The words were true, but with the military industry competition approaching, time was running out. Lin Feng, your idea is good. It's not that we won't give you a chance. But the competition is about to start. There's no time left. I'm worried it won't be possible. Not possible. Minister Li, how much time until the competition begins? A week. About that. Li Dalai said conservatively, but immediately regretted it. He saw a more intense eagerness in Lin Feng's eyes. Enough. Minister Li, a week is enough? No more. I only need 5 days. Hiss. 5 days. Li Dalai looked up at the imposing Phantom fighter in the warehouse. Though he didn't understand deep theoretical knowledge, he had seen other engineers, including Elders Jean and Wu, conduct research and design. Modifying a small device or measuring some data would take at least a month, right? Lin Feng, the military industry competition is no small matter. Elders Jean and Wu take it very seriously and have given strict orders. 5 days isn't enough for modifications. Don't joke around. Could you really improve the weapon system of an entire fighter in 5 days? Even working day and night without food or sleep, could you really manage it? Even a professional team of top engineers couldn't do it, let alone just Lin Feng alone. Li Dalai thought Lin Feng was just being impulsive and joking, so he waved his hand. Lin Feng, I know your intentions are good, but but we have to be practical. It's already very practical. 5 days is absolutely enough. Lin Feng understood Li Dalia's concerns and began to offer suggestions. Minister Li, think about it. The Phantom fighter is already perfect. But what if in the competition it encounters another fighter with far superior performance? Although such a possibility was almost non-existent, Lin Feng was just persuading him. Minister Li, think again. What if Elders Jin and Wu unexpectedly obtain a perfectly modified Phantom fighter that outperforms all other fighters in the competition? They would surely be delighted. And if they're happy, they might provide some conveniences to our Jinghai City military region. It wasn't entirely impossible. Elders Jin and Wu represented the Dragon Academy of Sciences. If the Jinghai City military region could connect with the Dragon Academy, that would be like welding on an iron plate. With just a few words, Li Dalai was genuinely swayed by Lin Feng. A glint of heat appeared in his eyes. Lin Feng, can you guarantee that you'll perfect the Phantom fighter in 5 days? After all, the Phantom fighter was Lin Feng's creation, transformed from a scrapped, battle-damaged fighter over half a month. Of course, no one thought Lin Feng could do it, but the kid had actually pulled it off. Minister Li, I said 5 days and it'll be 5 days. Lin Feng's tone was firm, rekindling hope in Li Dalia's heart. Good. Whatever materials or equipment you need, just ask. If what Lin Feng said held true, perfecting the weapon system of the Phantom fighter before the military-industrial competition would make it even more formidable and explosive. When the esteemed Jin and Wu elders arrived, it would be the greatest surprise. In the following days, Lin Feng indeed transferred the Phantom fighter to his own military factory, toiling day and night. Burning the midnight oil became routine. The only difference was that a special forces unit was stationed outside the factory, rotating shifts on guard duty. Li Dalai had issued a top-level order. Without his permission, no one within the military region was allowed entry into the factory. This suited Lin Feng perfectly. He could bury himself in work, simply writing up a list of material and equipment needs and handing it to the relevant person in charge. It was truly a green light across the board. Under such conditions, Lin Feng naturally wouldn't disappoint Minister Li. He deliberately spent 500 modification points to procure special weapons and metal alloys, modifying and smelting them. Watching the massive mechanical arms slowly dissect the Phantom fighter's hull, then patiently weld piece after piece, a surge of pride swelled in Lin Feng's chest. Now that's more like it. This is the true Phantom fighter. One day, when the modification was fully complete, Zhang Chu, as an ace pilot, was itching to take it for a spin. Li Dalai immediately dismissed the idea. Zhang Chu, don't you dare. Comrade, Lin Feng has finally completed the second modification of the Phantom fighter. The weapon system is perfected. The military competition is about to begin. Elders Jin and Wu are counting on you to show off your skills with the Phantom fighter at the competition. Don't cause any trouble now. It wasn't that Li Dalai was overly serious, but he had to be cautious. In just these 5 days, others might have let time slip by, but not Li Dalai. Whenever Lin Feng encountered material or supply needs for modifying the Phantom fighter, Li Dalai would rack his brains to procure them, tearing down one thing to patch another just to gather what Lin Feng needed. Glancing back at the material list, Li Dalai finally realized the immense power those combined components could unleash. All right, Minister Li. Zhang Chu, being a straightforward man, understood the minister's concerns and didn't press further. Soon it was announced that this year's military-industrial competition would be specially held at the Jinghai City military region. Li Dalai was flattered by the honor, only later realizing it was due to the strong recommendation of Elders Jin and Wu. On that day, on the runway of the Jinghai City military region, helicopters, military jeeps, and armored vehicles were parked in rows. Minister Li, in full military uniform, exuded an air of solemn authority. The Jinghai City military region had mobilized all its armed forces, enforcing top-level security inside and out. The special forces on patrol duty were all armed with live ammunition, ensuring the safety and order of the competition site. Just then, a military helicopter landed slowly, and 2 elderly men in dark Zhongshan suits stepped out. Elder Jin, Elder Wu. You must have had a long journey. Li Dalai stepped forward with a modest smile. Elder Jin and Elder Wu exchanged glances and shook hands with him. Minister Li, it's only been a month, but you look quite weary. The military district has been busy with an increased workload. Li Dalai spoke casually, but in truth, ever since Lin Feng arrived at the Jinghai City military factory, he had hardly had a moment's peace. Whether it was demanding special metal materials or the loud modification sounds at night that triggered a full alert, mistaking it for an enemy attack. Elders Jin and Wu saw through it, but said nothing. Since collaborating with Lin Feng, the super catalyst had been produced continuously. They had thoroughly studied such advanced technology. If not for the impending military competition, they wouldn't have left their research benches. By the way, Minister Li, I heard engineers from the Southern and Northern Engineering Institutes have also arrived. Yes, it's rare for everyone to gather. They're already engaged in academic exchanges. As the minister of the Jinghai City military region, Li Dalai felt honored, and the higher-ups indeed placed great importance on this competition. Good, very good. At the competition, numerous top engineers and experts presented their modified military equipment and weapons. For instance, a Dragon Nation Type 99 main battle tank was surrounded by senior engineers and experts for evaluation and scoring. Elders Jean and Wu approached, observing the Type 99 tank, paying special attention to its tracks and the caliber of its cannon. Elders Jean and Wu. The engineer responsible for designing and modifying this tank was a top-tier professional, tall, with glasses, exuding an air of deep knowledge. Greetings, elders. I am Chen Fei from the Southern Engineering Institute. This is the Type 99 main battle tank I personally designed and modified. Based on the original model, I've installed the latest 130mm caliber cannon. The tank engine power has been significantly boosted to 200 horsepower. Maximum road speed reaches 110 km per hour. Maximum off-road speed reaches 75 km per hour. Truly an upgrade of a new generation. Elders Jean and Wu listened to Chen Fei's introduction, nodded in satisfaction, and offered a fair evaluation. Very impressive. Considering the speed improvement of the Type 99 main battle tank shows you've put in the effort. Find a tank driver and test it on the proving grounds. Let's see how it performs. Elder Jean's suggestion thrilled Chen Fei. Showcasing his research achievements before Elders Jean and Wu of the Lonker Academy was a dream for many senior engineers. Soon, under everyone's watchful eyes, a tank driver assigned by Chen Fei began operations. The Type 99 main battle tank sped across the test field. Finally, it fired a shot at a target which instantly turned to dust. Not bad. Let's move on to the next one. Elders Jean and Wu nodded and proceeded to the next armored vehicle, which looked somewhat bulky in appearance. However, its defensive capabilities were well ensured. Minister Li, where is the engineer who modified this armored vehicle? Oh, you mean Senior Engineer Gao Xiong. Li Dalei recognized Gao Xiong's work on this vehicle, noting its excellent defensive performance, and promptly sent for him. Upon meeting the elders, Gao Xiong was as excited as the others. Greetings, Elders Jean and Wu. Tell us about this armored vehicle. Gao Xiong stood before the crowd, elaborating on the design concepts for modifying the armored vehicle, then delving into exhaustive details about its operation performance and every other aspect. In short, it boasted formidable defensive strength and remarkable speed. The armored vehicle, built upon its original steel plating, has been infused and smelted with nickel-chromium alloy elements, granting it resistance to high temperatures and artillery bombardment. More importantly, the power system has been retrofitted to utilize hydrogen, the most practical, environmentally friendly, and highest combustion efficiency fuel. Gao Xiong spoke with such fervor that his face eventually turned a deep shade of red. Elder Jean and Elder Wu nodded in unison, offering their usual praise. Not bad, not bad. As they proceeded, they encountered several more armored vehicles which had merely undergone corresponding improvements in speed and defensive capabilities without any major breakthrough advancements. Just as the two elders were about to step into the aircraft zone, a vehicle with a dusty yellow hue perfectly blending into the grass caught their attention. Director Li, which engineer modified this armored vehicle? Why is it parked here? Clearly this spot was inconspicuous, and they only discovered it as they were about to leave. Well, Li Dalei looked awkwardly towards Zhang Chu, who fortunately understood the situation and promptly saluted to report proactively. Reporting. The engineer behind this armored vehicle's modification is Lin Feng. The performance specifications and all other documents are right here. Please take a look. What in the world? As everyone watched Zhang Chu step forward and utter the name Lin Feng, they were all taken aback. When a booklet resembling a manual was placed before them, the engineers and experts were utterly dumbfounded. Other engineers and modifiers personally attended the site to explain, demonstrate, and test their creations. But you hand us a little booklet. How could such a farce occur at a prestigious military competition? Li Dalei patted Zhang Chu's shoulder. Zhang Chu, what mischief are you up to again? Where is Lin Feng? Why isn't he here? Unable to speak loudly in front of Elders Jean and Wu, Zhang Chu whispered in Li Dalei's ear. Director Lin Feng said he's too tired and is resting in his room. In short, he was catching some sleep. Li Dalei's square face darkened. Go. Drag that kid over here right now. Yes. Zhang Chu nodded, but still handed the manual for the armored vehicle personally written by Lin Feng to Elders Jean and Wu. The two elders didn't mind. Trusting Lin Feng, they actually began flipping through the small booklet. Super Intelligent Stealth Combat Armored Vehicle. The name was quite lengthy. Elders Jean and Wu exchanged glances and chuckled, reminded of Lin Feng's previous Lin Tian Ghost Fighter, always fond of devising flashy novel contraptions. The elders continued reading. They had high expectations for Lin Feng at this military competition, yet here he was absent with only a manual to show for it. It was very detailed, from the modification concepts and design blueprints to the materials and equipment utilized. Old Jean this. This time Elder Wu spoke first, his eyes widening as he examined the operating instructions. An environmental adaptive camouflage function. According to this, under suitable environmental conditions, the vehicle can generate a camouflage color. It seems so. The explanation states it was inspired by camouflage in the animal kingdom, leading to this modification design. The materials and metals used. The two elders glanced at the list. Weren't these rare elements from the far end of the periodic table? Some of them hadn't even had their specific functions fully understood, yet Lin Feng was bold enough to use them. And this, the power system modification, claims to achieve up to 5,000 horsepower. How could that be possible? Reaching 5,000 horsepower would leave nothing but a blur on the road. Honestly, I feel like I'm holding you back from taking off. Elders Jean and Wu looked at each other in astonishment. The manual also explained the performance of bulletproof glass and defensive armor, claiming it was heavily infused with nickel-chromium alloy elements capable of withstanding bombardment. It ended with a line, super intelligent stealth combat armored vehicle fully loaded. Youth, you deserve it. Regardless of the youth nonsense, Elders Jean and Wu now only wanted to drag Lin Feng over and ask him directly. Even if they tentatively believed the manual's claims, what about the super intelligent part? Where was the intelligence? Had it been devoured? Who can drive this armored vehicle to the testing ground for a demonstration? Elder Jean spoke, his gaze sweeping over the crowd. Elder Jean, let me do it. I can too. Driving armored vehicles is my specialty, especially one that's been modified like this. Everyone rushed forward, eager to showcase their skills before Elders Jean and Wu, hoping to catch their favorable attention. Soon Li Dailai personally selected a driver. But before he could board, a military off-road vehicle sped over with Zhang Chu pulling a sleepy-eyed Lin Feng behind him. Elders Jean and Wu. This armored vehicle must not be driven. Why not? The crowd was puzzled. What was so special about this armored vehicle that it couldn't be driven? Zhang Chu scratched his head and explained with a wry smile. I drove this vehicle here. Initially, I thought it was as simple to operate as any other armored vehicle, so I didn't read the manual carefully. Then, I accidentally pressed some button, and it nearly blew up another modified armored vehicle beside it. Oomph. Upon hearing this, the top engineer Gao Xiong, who had been standing aloof with his arms crossed, let out a cold snort. The modified armored vehicle that nearly got destroyed was his. Zhang Chu, you're exaggerating. My modified armored vehicle is renowned for its defensive capabilities. Go ahead, try to blow it up. Besides, an armored vehicle isn't a battle tank. How could it possibly have a weapon system? Hey, Engineer Gao, aren't you being a bit too absolute? When I was driving, a light blue holographic interface appeared on the bulletproof glass, crystal clear. If I hadn't pulled out the key in time, your armored vehicle would have been blown to bits. Zhang Chu wasn't bluffing, he had seen it with his own eyes. That light blue holographic interface was truly incredible, with intelligent controls and even a button for something called submerge. Anyway, I can't explain the specifics. If you have questions, just ask Lin Feng directly. He welded every joint and tightened every screw on that vehicle. Unable to clarify further, Zhang Chu pushed Lin Feng forward. If the guy could create such a novel contraption, he must have been prepared. Elders Jean and Wu beamed with even more smiles upon seeing Lin Feng. Lin Feng, come and introduce everyone to your super intelligent stealth combat armored vehicle. Based on the terrifyingly advanced performance of the Ghost Fighter, Elder Jean and Elder Wu harbored mixed feelings of belief and doubt toward Lin Feng, eager to discover what new type of military equipment this young man could create. Lin Feng was not one to be vague. The super intelligent stealth combat armored vehicle was the result of his painstaking month-long research and arduous modifications. It was not simply about enhancing speed and defensive capabilities. Elder Jean, Elder Wu, to be honest, every specification on the manual can be perfectly realized on this armored vehicle. Not only those alloy metal elements, but also the rare elements located at the end of the periodic table were obtained by Lin Feng through tremendous effort. Indeed, without the auxiliary presence of this bug-like system, one could rack their brains and still fail to grasp the development concept of the super-intelligent stealth combat armored vehicle. Elder Jean and Elder Wu exchanged glances filled with shock, but even more so with incredulity. Lin Feng, are you serious? Can all these performance specs and systems on the manual be demonstrated? Are you not boasting? Elder Jean was the first to voice doubt. Even the single stealth feature on the manual, the ability to mimic animal camouflage, was exceedingly difficult to achieve. In actual combat, as essential equipment for rapid response units, an armored vehicle's speed and defensive performance are the primary considerations, which is why most engineers, whether senior or top tier, when modifying and improving an armored vehicle, the first thing that comes to mind is enhancing speed and defensive capabilities. Regardless of the extent of the modifications, the practical combat results were indeed excellent and applicable. At this moment, Elder Jean and Elder Wu were extremely curious. If Lin Feng's modified armored vehicle could not meet the basic requirements for combat emergency missions, it would be a complete failure. Military equipment emphasizes practical combat and utility. If it fails to satisfy even these 2 points, then the modifications and improvements would be utterly meaningless. No boasting. Rest assured, both elders. Lin Feng vowed, patting his chest. After a month of improvements and refinements, the super-intelligent stealth combat armored vehicle was not as simple as it appeared, nor was it merely for show. Enough, no more idle talk. Let's go straight to the demonstration. Explanations would not suffice. Data design blueprints and concepts could only serve as references. The true testament to the results was, of course, the testing. Zhang Chu, follow me. Lin Feng gestured and Zhang Chu did not hesitate. Soon the two boarded the vehicle. Rumble. The super-intelligent stealth combat armored vehicle started. Simply running a couple of laps on the test range and shooting at a stationary target was meaningless. If you're going to do it for real. Recalling the bold claims made by a certain top engineer earlier, Lin Feng felt it necessary to take him down a notch. Elder Jean, Elder Wu, I believe that conducting performance tests solely on the test range is insufficient and cannot fully demonstrate the armored vehicle's capabilities. Then what do you propose? Elder Jean and Elder Wu exchanged glances, sensing that Lin Feng was about to stir up trouble, a foreboding feeling washing over them. Since it's a military competition, there must be a comparison. Find another modified armored vehicle on site and have a proper contest. That would be far more interesting. It was a bold idea, yet no one present stepped forward to object because Lin Feng's reasoning was sound. What was the point of shooting targets on a test range? A true competition demanded a real matchup. Then, Elder Jean and Elder Wu had no objections, but finding someone willing to compete became the issue. Gao Xiong caught the almost mocking and disdainful expression on Li Chaos' face and immediately stepped forward with a cold snort. Elder Jean, Elder Wu, I believe Engineer Lin's claims are exaggerated. I am willing to use my modified armored vehicle for a competition. What a development. Top engineer Gao Xiong had stepped up. There was going to be a show. Everyone knew that during the earlier demonstration on the armored vehicle test range, Gao Xiong's vehicle had been praised by Elder Jean and Elder Wu for both its speed and defensive capabilities. This is getting interesting. One is a top engineer, the other is a folk expert specially appointed and valued by Elder Jean and Elder Wu. It's hard to say who will win. The engineers and experts attending the military competition from outside wore expressions of eager spectators. Not everyone knew about the Ghost Fighter redesign project. In particular, these engineers and experts were buried in their work day and night, focusing solely on their own projects. Furthermore, coupled with the Strategic Deception Bureau's denial of the Ghost Fighter incident, gradually few people paid it any attention, and some even harbored doubts. In that case, both of you head to the test range. We'll start with the most conventional tests, and you can decide and discuss the rest yourselves. Conventional tests still had a certain scientific basis, and Elder Jean and Elder Wu were not being biased. They were leaving room for the two to improvise. As for how far it would evolve, it all depended on their performance. In truth, they also wanted to see what kind of sparks would fly when two equally modified armored vehicles competed on the test range. All right, no problem for me. Then I'm even more fine. Lin Feng grinned, harboring no hostility, just wanting to take Gao Xiong down a peg. Zhang Chu sat in the passenger seat, a simple smile spreading across his honest face. He had experienced the super-intelligent stealth combat armored vehicle firsthand, and its performance was truly top-notch. Lin Feng, don't be too harsh on him later. We're all comrades after all. Relax, I know my limits. The two modified armored vehicles started up and drove onto the track. The first test was a conventional sprint to measure the maximum speed within a set distance. The two vehicles lined up side by side. The engines rumbled intermittently, the sound waves alone indicating that they had been modified. However, among the engineers and experts present, some masters could judge a vehicle's overall performance just from the engine sound. For instance, Engineer Liu listened carefully to the engine sound and observed the exhaust volume from the exhaust pipes. The difference between the two seems considerable. Everyone's eyes flickered as they began to scrutinize closely. Indeed, the exhaust pipe sizes differ and the exhaust volumes are even more distinct. And look at how the tires bear the weight. They are clearly different. Details emerged one by one. Judging from the exhaust and tire load, Lin Feng's armored vehicle clearly held an advantage. As for Gao Xiong's vehicle, it was overall bulky, suitable for combat defense, but in any emergency response, it would likely fall at a disadvantage. Even before the competition test began, some had already started comparing data and predicting who held the advantage. Elder Jean and Elder Wu saw through it all, but remained silent. As meritorious engineers of the Dragon Science Institute, they held no favor for judging superiority through mere data comparison. Everything must be proven through practical results. If you two are ready, begin at the signal. Boom. The moment the words fell, Gao Xiong dashed forward his armored vehicle, turning into a streak of lightning. Haha, what? Lin Feng, what are you grinning about? Engineer Gao is already far ahead. Seeing Lin Feng grinning foolishly, Zhang Chu grew anxious. The test track wasn't long, and the goal was merely to precisely measure acceleration and top speed. No rush will let him have a 5-second head start. Shall we start the 5-second countdown? Automatic ejection in 5 seconds. Roger. Ejection sequence ready. Countdown begins. 5, 4. Lin Feng tightened his seatbelt, and before everyone placed his hands behind his head, as if to catch a nap. What was he doing? Engineer Gao had worked so hard to get that far ahead. Even if he couldn't win, why give up so blatantly? What kind of move was this? No one understood. Not Elder Jean or Elder Wu, not even Zhang Chu. And what did that 5-second countdown ejection mean? And who was this Xiao Hui, he called out. Zhang Chu, as your brother, I advise you to buckle up, or else. Lin Feng. What the hell are you up to? Zhang Chu roared, yet despite the absurdity, he obediently fastened his seatbelt. He even double-checked, ensuring it was securely in place. By then, the mechanical intelligence, Xiao Hui's 5-second countdown had ended. 1. Ejection sequence initiated. Engine 1 ready. Engine 2 ready. Engine 3 ready. Engine 4. Boom. Zhang Chu's head spun with all these engine numbers. Why did an armored vehicle need 4 engines? Was he trying to take off? Lin Feng. Zhang Chu opened his mouth to ask something, but the armored vehicle had already launched. The instantaneous burst of power, especially the feeling of weightlessness. Thankfully, the seatbelt kept Zhang Chu from flying out. Outside, the engineers and experts watched in stunned silence, left only to inhale the exhaust. An ejection launch. Engineer Liu, if I'm not mistaken, that was an ejection start, right? Never mind what it is. Can anyone tell me the acceleration of that armored vehicle in that instant? Judging by the force, it might have reached fighter jet takeoff acceleration. Impossible. Fighter jet takeoff acceleration is 5 ms superscript 2. Are you sure an emergency armored vehicle can achieve that? Some doubted, knowing that reaching a fighter jet's maximum acceleration was no simple feat. Elder Jean and Elder Wu, the true authorities, could only force bitter smiles. Old Jean, I think that armored vehicle Lin Feng modified could actually catch up to a plane at full speed. Of course, only on a wide obstacle-free track. Elder Wu offered such high praise. Elder Jean had to nod in agreement. With Lin Feng giving Gao Xiong a 5-second head start, the test track was nearly at its end, yet he was catching up. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Gao Xiong floored the accelerator, pressing it to the max, but his vehicle had reached its limit. At first, he thought Lin Feng's pause was a sign of cowardice, expecting an easy victory. But who could have guessed? He lost the first round. Second test: armor defense and pressure resistance. The testing staff then brought in massive testing equipment. Just wait. My modified armored vehicle's steel plates include nickel-chromium alloy. It can withstand over 1,000 kilograms of pressure. Gao Xiong boasted while Lin Feng smiled silently. Rumble. The testing staff operated the pressure tool, targeting the armored vehicle's door, initially setting it to 1,000 kilograms of pressure. The door began to creak with the sound of metal compressing. As pressure increased, the door started to deform until it reached a critical point. The staff brought out the measurement instrument and announced the figure 3,000 kilograms. Not bad. That's a respectable number. Elder Jean and Elder Wu commented. Visually, it was clear that Gao Xiong's modified vehicle excelled in defensive performance. The pressure test was merely to verify data while preserving the vehicle's original capabilities. Lin Feng, your turn. All eyes turned to the armored vehicle behind Lin Feng. Compared to standard models, his modified version was slightly smaller. The testing staff approached with the instrument, but Lin Feng stopped him. Gao Xiong, having lost the first round, stepped forward with a sneer. Engineer Lin. What's this? Worried your beloved modified vehicle might get damaged. Speaking of beloved vehicles, Gao Xiong bore a deep grudge against Lin Feng for dismantling his own painstakingly modified armored car. Haha. Faced with doubt, Lin Feng responded with his usual calm smile and walked directly to Elder Jean, Elder Wu, and Li Dalei. Reporting to the leaders. The current testing equipment is insufficient to demonstrate the vehicle's performance. I suggest a different approach. A more innovative method, one that better simulates real combat. At the mention of real combat, Elder Jean and Elder Wu grew intrigued. Practical application was always welcome. Lin Feng, share your idea. Lin Feng always brought unexpected surprises. They were curious to hear his more combat-oriented approach. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. Report to the commander. I request to use TNT explosives to bomb the armored vehicle to recreate the most realistic and severe conditions of actual combat. A sharp gasp filled the air. TNT explosives? This kid truly dares to go all out. The crowd's eyes widened. The military-industrial competition, ostensibly a showcase of research achievements, was actually a platform for academic exchange and discussion. It aimed to enhance communication among various military institutes and engineering departments, fostering mutual learning and addressing shortcomings. The tests were merely to gather data for practical combat reference. Yet this is nothing but a defensive pressure test, and you want to recreate a battlefield by using TNT explosives. Are you mad, or am I? Elder Jean and Elder Wu exchanged helpless, bitter smiles while Li Dalia's face darkened. How did the Jinghai military district end up with an oddball like Lin Feng? No, he wasn't entirely from the Jinghai military district. Lin Feng, stop this nonsense. At a military-industrial competition, using TNT for a pressure test, aren't you worried about harming others? The sheer power of TNT explosives was immense. Even with controlled detonation, Li Dalia, the head of the Jinghai military district, couldn't rest easy. If a stray spark injured someone, the Jinghai military district, and Li Dalia himself, would be thoroughly disgraced and likely face severe reprimand from higher authorities. Using TNT for a pressure test, you've got some nerve, kid. Elder Jean and Elder Wu shook their heads, advocating for the most conservative approach. Lin Feng, TNT is far too powerful. It's truly unsuitable for this test. Stick with conventional testing instruments. Use the standard testing equipment. Lin Feng glanced at the testing instrument the staff were operating. With this thing, how long would the pressure test take? No. Elder Jean, Elder Wu, please trust me. I have absolute confidence. Only TNT can truly demonstrate the results of my month-long research and design. Otherwise, everything will have been in vain. Was it really that serious? Given the gravity of his words, others like Elder Jean and Elder Wu might have outright refused, and Li Dalia, it couldn't be bothered. But Lin Feng was different. Lin Feng, are you absolutely certain? Elder Jean and Elder Wu still had some faith in Lin Feng. If this super stealth combat armored vehicle could withstand a TNT blast, it would be a groundbreaking military breakthrough. I guarantee it. Please, you must believe me. No joke. This super armored vehicle was crafted by Lin Feng using a blend of rare metal alloys and various advanced processing techniques. It had been painstakingly improved. If it couldn't withstand TNT, Lin Feng would eat his words. Elder Jean, Elder Wu, are you really going to let this kid have his way, eh? Others might not know the cost of modifying this super stealth combat armored vehicle, but Li Dalia was all too aware. If not for the high regard Elder Jean and Elder Wu held for Lin Feng, he would never have provided those rare metals listed on the requisition form. Now that the vehicle was modified, its speed was impressive. Even if its defense was lacking, at least it excelled in speed. What if it was utterly destroyed by the terrifying force of TNT? Wouldn't that month of effort be wasted? And all that investment of rare alloys, wouldn't it be for nothing? From a broader perspective, a conservative test was the way to go. Elder Wu looked at Elder Jean as he was one who valued caution and empirical evidence. Elder Jean, however, was different. He preferred a Hansen approach, pushing the boundaries of scientific data to closely simulate real combat. I think we should give Comrade Lin Feng a chance. If there are any losses, the Chinese Academy of Sciences will cover them, Elder Jean promised with a smile. What more could Li Dalia say? Could he admit he was reluctant to part with a modified armored vehicle? That would be beneath him. Fine, he nodded with a wry smile. Thus, in everyone's eyes, Lin Feng's modified vehicle, with its impressive speed and ejection start, was already reduced to a heap of scrap metal. Zhang Chu watched the officer holding the TNT, shook his head, and gave up trying to dissuade him. Lin Feng, you wouldn't die if you showed some restraint for once. Can't you just be normal? Lin Feng grinned. They say genius is on the left, madness on the right. Zhang Chu, tell me honestly, do you think I'm a genius or a madman? Zhang Chu was at a loss for words. He could only say that Lin Feng was a mix of both, a genius and a madman. If only he could tone it down a notch, had be perfect. Report, Minister. TNT explosives are ready. Good. Li Dalia nodded, his stern eyes fixed on Lin Feng. The destructive power of TNT was formidable. Though using TNT for the pressure test meant Lin Feng's modified armored vehicle was already considered scrap metal in a sense. Still, Lin Feng was part of the Jinghai Military District's ordnance factory. Even if the vehicle was to be blown to pieces, there shouldn't be too many fragments. Elder Jean, Elder Wu, how much TNT do you think we should use? The two elders exchanged glances and spoke in unison, looking at Lin Feng. Could you design this modified armored vehicle? You decide. 10 kilograms. What? The moment the words left his mouth, the crowd's eyes widened again. Are you kidding me? 10 kilograms of TNT. Stop joking. 10 kilograms of TNT. The maximum a state-of-the-art Russian modified armored vehicle with the best defense could withstand in a military exercise was 8 kilograms. 10 kilograms might as well be a death sentence for the vehicle's pressure test. Exactly. 10 kilograms of TNT is no joke. It's clear Lin Feng knows he can't win and has given up. The engineers and experts were in a heated debate. 10 kilograms of TNT was no small amount. The terrifying destructive force it would unleash far exceeded the theoretical maximum an armored vehicle could endure. This time, even Elder Jean, who had always been willing to let Lin Feng try, wavered at the mention of 10 kilograms. Lin Feng, 10 kilograms is too much. Let's go with 8 kilograms. If it can withstand, that'll consider the test a pass. Elder Jean set the figure using the new Russian modified vehicle as a benchmark. 8 kilograms. Withstanding that would already be commendable. Lin Feng shook his head, his face still wearing that calm, unruffled smile. 10 kilograms of TNT is just a conservative test figure. We can increase the load in the future. 10 kilograms of TNT was not even the limit of this modified armored vehicle. What an outrageous joke. The latest Russian modified armored vehicle could withstand a maximum of only 8 kilograms, yet Lin Feng claimed his self-designed vehicle could handle far more than 10. As a top-tier engineer, Gao Xiong was the first to object. Engineer Lin, I think you're just scared by the pressure test and talking nonsense. 10 kilograms is enough to blow any armored vehicle to pieces, let alone yours, with its unmodified steel plates, no matter how excellent. Exactly. Everyone was an engineer and expert. Claiming 10 kilograms might fool an amateur, but presenting such data before a crowd of scientists was like brandishing a spear before Guanyes Gate. Engineer Lin, in my opinion, you should just admit defeat. It's better than having your hard-modified vehicle blown to bits. Right? Losing isn't shameful. Elder Jean and Elder Wu watched this scene, feeling that Lin Feng was indeed exaggerating. They had yet to see an armored vehicle that could withstand over 10 kilograms of TNT. Lin Feng, everyone has spoken. Why don't you reconsider? They'll say it again. If your vehicle can survive 8 kilograms of TNT, they'll deem it qualified and declare you the winner. Elder Jean personally made the promise and no one dared to refute it. Still, 8 kilograms of TNT was no small amount, especially given its terrifying destructive power. All eyes were on Lin Feng, waiting for an answer, either admit defeat or reduce the kilogram count. Everyone was here for the military industry competition, partly to compete, but also for academic exchange. There was no need to blow up someone's painstakingly modified vehicle. Lin Feng grinned, still unmoved. Elder Jean, Elder Wu, trust me. In fact, 10 kilograms is an understatement. He then looked at the engineers and experts who had mocked him earlier. Thank you all for your concern, but it's a bit unnecessary. I don't know if your modified vehicles can withstand it, but mine modified by me will feel 10 kilograms of TNT like a mere tickle. Zhang Chu, start the explosion. Before Elder Jean and Elder Wu could give orders, Minister Li Dalai could no longer stand it. If this vehicle modified by Lin Feng wasn't blown to smithereens, he would doubt the power of TNT itself. Minister, how many kilograms should I use? Didn't you hear, Engineer Lin? 10 kilograms is just the start. Let's fast forward, 16 kilograms. A sharp intake of breath. 16 kilograms. This was madness. Clearly Li Dalai was also irritated. 16 kilograms was exactly twice 8, meaning he bet Lin Feng's modified vehicle was twice as tough as the highly touted Russian model. Elder Jean and Elder Wu exchanged glances and unusually did not intervene. Lin Feng, sorry. Zhang Chu forced a bitter smile. Since Lin Feng was showing off, he would use 16 kilograms, not a gram less. Under Zhang Chu's direction, 16 kilograms of TNT were evenly placed on the hood of the armored vehicle's engine and on the bulletproof glass. These two parts were the most vulnerable. If the engine hood was shattered, the entire vehicle would be crippled if the bulletproof glass failed. There was no need to say more. Was Zhang Chu, that rascal, deliberately targeting the weakest spots out of spite for Lin Feng? Yet Lin Feng looked smug, as if he had personally instructed Zhang Chu to do so. Everyone take cover. Test personnel ensure safety. Detonate when ready. Minister Li Dalai issued the warning. The shockwave from TNT could fling anyone away. Lin Feng, are you sure about this? Zhang Chu hid with Lin Feng. In truth, placing the TNT on the hood and glass was Lin Feng's secret instruction. Otherwise, given their relationship, why would he do that? Zhang Chu, has no one ever told you not to question a man's capability? Even if you can't handle it, I must. Lin Feng remained cheerful, utterly unconcerned. With the system's modification plan, he couldn't quite remember the details. How many kilograms of TNT could the super-intelligent stealth combat armored vehicle withstand at maximum? At least dozens, if not hundreds. Otherwise, Lin Feng wouldn't have dared to present it at the military competition. Unlike others who were smug after minor tweaks to defense or speed, he aimed higher. You're full of it. What will you do if you fail? Be careful, boom. As Zhang Chu spoke, the 16 kilograms of TNT on the test field exploded. In an instant, a thick, acrid smell of gunpowder filled the air, along with a powerful shockwave carrying dust toward the crowd, shrouding everything in a haze. The destructive power of 16 kilograms of TNT is terrifying. I can hear the engine hood shattering, and the bulletproof glass must be ruined. Alas, such a fine armored vehicle with rocket-assisted launch capability destroyed. What a shame. Indeed. 8 kilograms was already too much. 16 kilograms will surely reduce it to fragments. The engineers and experts began shaking their heads in regret. Thinking back, the acceleration of Lin Feng's modified vehicle rivaled that of a fighter jet. If this performance could be combined with defensive modifications, it would be a brilliant innovation, potentially yielding outstanding results in combat. Elder Jean and Elder Wu did not jump to conclusions. Instead, they exchanged glances and looked at Li Dalai, who radioed the test detonator for results. They couldn't be bothered to go over and see the wreckage. Report. Results of the 16-kilogram TNT pressure test on modified vehicle No. 13. The test detonator ran over and reported seriously. Vehicle engine intact. Bulletproof glass shows no cracks. All systems normal. Test result pass. The tester's words echoed in everyone's ears, especially the phrase, "Test results passed, everything is normal." Smiles froze on their faces, convinced that the instrument must have malfunctioned. "Comrade, are you sure there's no problem? Are you certain the test passed? That was a full 16 kilograms of TNT explosive. I refuse to believe the bulletproof glass doesn't have a single crack. 16 kilograms of TNT explosive. What's more absurd is you're telling me it passed directly." Lying to ghosts. Elder Jean and Elder Wu exchanged glances. Lin Feng said, "Let's go. Take a look." The crowd followed behind the two elders, all hearts filled with unease. The tester's earlier words were too outrageous. If the engine was fine, one could chalk it up to its sturdiness. But what about the bulletproof glass? What brand and what material could withstand TNT explosive? After all, that was damn TNT. 16 kilograms of TNT explosive. Not some firecrackers. Elder Jean and Elder Wu took the lead, arriving first at the super intelligent stealth combat armored vehicle. Good. From the outside, the vehicle showed no issues. The 16 kilograms of TNT had only left shallow, uneven explosive patterns on its surface. It had merely added some markings to the plain paint like tattoos. It looks fine on the outside, but it might shatter at a touch. Gao Xiong was the first to step forward, pressing his palm against the bulletproof glass. If the palm didn't work, head, just punch it. Clang. His fist bone slammed hard against the bulletproof glass, the pain real and intense. Gao Xiong held back a red-faced grimace, not uttering a single sound. The bulletproof glass is fine. Elder Jean and Elder Wu exchanged a glance, then ordered the testers to open the engine hood. Immediately, everyone saw 4 intact engines, spotless and pristine. How is this possible? A crowd of engineers and experts clutched their heads, feeling their worldview and scientific knowledge overturned as if everything they'd learned was in vain. A 16-kilogram TNT blast only left a shallow mark. Am I insane, or is the armored vehicle insane? No, I must be the crazy one. This can't be real. We must be dreaming. Old who slapped me awake. This dream is too absurd. Good, some had already begun to suspect their own minds were the problem. Lin Feng stood with his arms crossed, saying nothing. He loved this feeling. No need for words or actions. Weren't the scientists the ones who loved to talk with data? Now the data was here, so speak up. Ding. Congratulations, host, for receiving 1,000 shock points from top engineer Gao Xiong. Ding. Congratulations, host, for receiving 800 shock points from senior engineer. Ding. Congratulations, host, for receiving 1,000 shock points from military district minister Li Dalai. The system's mechanical monotonous alerts echoed in his ears. Lin Feng grinned. Good, this was exactly the effect he wanted. Head shocked them all to death. Elder Jean and Elder Wu snapped back to reality, turning to Lin Feng with a changed attitude. Lin Feng, tell us this material. What's the maximum TNT load your armored vehicle can withstand? This time, Elder Jean had learned from the Ghost Fighter jet incident. If Lin Feng went into a detailed explanation, it would be a tedious list of hard-to-understand metal elements, possibly another rare metal table. Better to just skip it. The question of the maximum TNT load struck at everyone's hearts. 16 kilograms was 6 times what the Russian modified vehicles, which bragged internationally, could handle. And it wasn't even the limit. Lin Feng rubbed his chin, feigning modesty. I can't say the exact figure, but it's at least dozens of kilograms, if not 100. Otherwise, I'd be embarrassed to show it. Can you not be such a show-off? The engineers' and experts' faces turned black in unison. Dozens of kilograms, if not 100. Listen to that. Was that human speech? That was TNT explosive, not some firecracker. Ahem. Elder Jean and Elder Wu both coughed to clear their throats. Fortunately, Elder Jean's mental fortitude held up. Comrade Lin Feng, no need to test dozens of kilograms, right? Everyone here believes you. Well, count the second pressure test as passed as a win for you. No kidding. A 16-kilogram blast left it unscathed. Such an impressive armored vehicle. Would they really follow Lin Feng's suggestion and blast it with dozens of kilograms of TNT? Were they out of their minds? Fortunately, the Jinghai military district's secrecy was tight. If this scene reached the beautiful country, the already mysterious Eastern Dragon Kingdom might gain even more fantastical colors. Right. Comrade Lin Feng's modified super-intelligent stealth combat armored vehicle is indeed excellent. 16 kilograms is fine, and dozens of kilograms of TNT would be no problem. At that moment, Jinghai Military District Minister Li Dalai also stepped forward. The Jinghai military factory was under his management, and Lin Feng's modifications belonged to the district. Bringing honor to the district and winning medals in military competitions would help him make requests to higher-ups later. All right then. Lin Feng shrugged, indifferent, but asked tentatively, are you sure you don't want to double-check? What if what I said was false? Elder Jean laughed awkwardly, immediately dismissing the idea. By the way, Lin Feng, didn't you say this vehicle can engage in combat while moving? Give us a demonstration. No problem. Lin Feng called Zhang Chu to get in the car, then leaned on the window and waved at top engineer Gao Xiong. Engineer Gao, come on. Our competition isn't over yet. I'm sure the armored vehicle you personally modified can withstand my attack. Of course, Gao Xiong was confident. Sure, your vehicle had a superb spring start. Sure, it could withstand dozens of kilograms of TNT. You're so great and mighty, but I still don't believe it. Armored vehicles are meant for emergency missions and carrying personnel. Even with modifications, it's just some light weapons like machine guns. Could you really install artillery shells? Thinking it over, Gao Xiong found it unlikely. As long as there were no shell bombardments, his modified armored vehicle would be fine. Having gone through the previous 2 rounds of tests, the crowd had grown accustomed to it, yet they still felt that in this final freeform round, Lin Feng could not possibly get the better of Gao Xiong. After all, Gao Xiong's armored vehicle had sacrificed speed to maximize its defensive capabilities, making it nothing more than a veritable turtle shell. With the ejection start and TNT explosive pressure test, Elder Jean and Elder Wu grew increasingly intrigued by Lin Feng's modified armored vehicle, wondering if it could also achieve outstanding performance in mobile combat. If so, then Lin Feng's modified super-intelligent stealth combat armored vehicle could only be described as perfect, the king of all armored vehicles. Director Li, after the military industry competition concludes, could you trouble yourself to prepare a list of all the materials Lin Feng used to modify this armored vehicle for me? Elder Jean smiled as he looked back at Li Dailai, eager to discover what rare metal materials Lin Feng had employed to create such a formidable armored vehicle. Of course, Elder Jean and Elder Wu were meritorious experts of the Dragon Science Academy, both dedicated to serving the Dragon Kingdom, so Li Dailai had no reason to refuse. Meanwhile, to allow the 2 modified armored vehicles to fully demonstrate their combat capabilities, the testers had specially prepared a vast and expansive testing ground. Lin Feng was quite satisfied and claimed the size did not matter, for Gao Xiong's iron turtle shell lacked any weapon system whatsoever, meaning it could only be on the receiving end of attacks. Whenever you're ready, you can begin. The back-end operator linked the radio communication to both modified armored vehicles. Lin Feng and Gao Xiong simultaneously started their engines, but Lin Feng's engine seemed to engage with a vortex-like surge. Lin Feng, does your armored vehicle really have a weapon system? You're not bluffing it. Of course. Lin Feng's flurry of button presses made Zhang Chu's scalp tingle. Was this really an armored vehicle? Why did he feel it was more like a modified tank? Xiaohui, activate autonomous driving. Initiate weapon system lock onto the iron turtle shell within close range. Lin Feng leaned back in the driver's seat and directly issued the command. Immediately. Received. Autonomous driving system activated. Weapon system initialization in progress. Initialization complete. A series of mechanical synthesized voices echoed within the armored vehicle, and everyone outside watched the super-intelligent stealth combat armored vehicle driven by Lin Feng and Zhang Chu. On its otherwise unremarkable roof, a cannon barrel abruptly emerged, dark and gaping. The crowd of engineers and experts gathered to spectate turned pale at the sight of the cannon barrel that had appeared out of nowhere, their lips twitching uncontrollably. Can anyone tell me what caliber that cannon is? From my visual estimate, it seems roughly similar to that of the Type 99 tank. Elder Jean and Elder Wu were once again astounded by Lin Feng's modified armored vehicle. They thought he was just fooling around, but he had actually installed a cannon barrel of no small caliber. The others were fine, but the one under the most psychological pressure was undoubtedly Gao Xiong. He had expected at most a machine gun, so why was there a cannon barrel? Elder Jean, Elder Wu, we can't let Lin Feng fool around like this. With that large caliber cannon firing, Engineer Gao will surely be in danger. Right? Elder Jean nodded solemnly. Tests were tests, but lives must not be endangered. Lin Feng, do you copy? Stop immediately. Stop immediately. Elder Jean's urgent voice came through the radio, but Lin Feng just grinned and said, Elder Jean, perhaps you should let Engineer Gao get out of the vehicle. Actually, the destructive power of my cannon isn't that great, and I'm not sure what it can achieve. I'd like to test it, so just let Engineer Gao get out. The radio's voice echoed in everyone's minds. The lad still held a grudge, but it was not unreasonable. A newly modified armored vehicle indeed needed data testing for all its performance metrics. Well, alright then. In truth, Gao Xiong had heard everything clearly, but he did not blame Elder Jean for agreeing, nor did he find anything amiss. He was simply unconvinced. Sure, installing a large caliber cannon was impressive, but that did not necessarily mean it could blast through his armored vehicle renowned for its defensive prowess, did it? Gao Xiong got out, everything was ready, and Lin Feng issued another command. Shall we activate weapon system autolock? Weapon system activated. Locking on. Target acquired one crudely modified armored vehicle. Lock complete. Listening to the mechanical broadcast, Zhang Chu, sitting in the passenger seat, nearly burst out laughing. Even the armored vehicle knew that Gao Xiong's vehicle was a crude modification. Excellent. Firepower coverage full assault. Received. As Lin Feng's words fell, a scene that left everyone stunned and utterly unexpected unfolded. One by one, cannon barrels began to emerge from the roof of the super-intelligent stealth combat armored vehicle of varying calibers, along with heavy machine guns and even holographic targeting systems. The crowd watched in awe, their scalps tingling, while Gao Xiong's face turned ashen. Good heavens! Is this really an armored vehicle? Are you sure this is an armored vehicle? Stop! Even Hollywood sci-fi blockbusters wouldn't dare film something like this. It's too absurd. I just want to know how such a perfect armored vehicle was modified by Lin Feng. This was the question on everyone's mind. After the first 2 rounds of testing and this outrageously powerful weapon system, no one could believe it was all modified and built by a single person. It's not certain whether it can actually break through Engineer Gao's armored vehicle's defense. That vehicle was modified with nickel-chromium alloy metal. True, no conclusion had been reached, so no one was convinced. And soon, when the first armor-piercing shell along with a barrage of various projectiles was fired, Gao Xiong's armored vehicle, that so-called defensive iron turtle shell, was engulfed in a storm of fire. What the hell? Some experts had already started cursing. Was this still a weapon system? It was like placing an entire arsenal on top of an armored vehicle. Elder Jean and Elder Wu were speechless, watching as thick smoke billowed from the first round of bombardment. Every shell struck Gao Xiong's armored vehicle with pinpoint accuracy. Thank goodness we had Engineer Gao get out beforehand, otherwise he would have been blasted into smithereens. All right, that's enough, Comrade Lin Feng. The test has fully passed. Judging by Elder Jean's nearly trembling voice over the radio, the old man was satisfied. More than satisfied, in fact. Target neutralized. Bombardment complete. Excellent. Lin Feng looked at the armored vehicle, now blasted into scattered parts, and felt great satisfaction with the weapon system he had modified and installed. As he and Zhang Chu stepped out of the vehicle, they heard the rumbling roar of rapidly spinning rotors overhead. It was a transport helicopter. Old Jean, Old Wu, finally we meet. The moment the plane came to a halt before anyone could disembark, Elder Qin's voice boomed from a distance. Elder Qin has arrived. Elder Jean glanced at Elder Wu beside him, his expression growing solemn. The armored vehicle clash between Gao Xiong and Lin Feng was merely a minor skirmish. This military-industrial competition's biggest draw was the showdown with Elder Qin's institute. The Dragon Science Academy and the Military-Industrial Academy had long been rivals. The most crucial point was that Elder Qin had been working in seclusion all this time. Who knew what monumental creation he had brewed? Elder Qin was hale and hearty, walking with vigorous strides. He reached the group in a few steps, his gaze pausing briefly on Lin Feng's face before he turned to Elder Wu with a smile. So I heard you're quite confident in your fighter jet this time. You even called me a while back trying to pry information about my aircraft. How naive. The 3 Titan-level academicians bickered like children. Old Qin, don't celebrate too early. We've prepared this time, and thoroughly. Elder Wu's face reddened as he craned his neck to retort loudly. Last time the Military-Industrial Academy stole the show, causing the Dragon Science Academy to lose face. This time they were determined to reclaim their honor. Elder Qin merely snorted in response to Elder Wu's words. As these titans bickered, Li Dalai and the others couldn't get a word in and could only listen obediently. Meanwhile, Zhang Chu pulled Lin Feng aside and whispered, "Brother, do you have confidence? Let me tell you, the Military-Industrial Academy is no pushover. Last year Elders Wu and Jean suffered a great loss, so this year they're dead set on winning. They've pinned all their hopes on you." Zhang Chu was cautious. Lin Feng, on the other hand, just curled his lip. Confidence? Ridiculous. Don't you already know the answer in your heart? As the two whispered, Elder Qin eagerly pulled everyone towards the airfield. The black drape was pulled back. A black fighter jet exuding an aura of lethality was revealed. Its paint and design were vastly different from any in active service. Elder Jean exchanged a surprised glance with Elder Wu. Isn't this a stealth fighter? The design is aerodynamic, but it hasn't been perfected. It's far inferior to ours. Elder Qin was taken aback and swore bluntly, "Nonsense. What do you two dullards know? This incorporates cutting-edge technology, stealth coating. Currently, only 2 countries in the world can achieve this. And this aircraft's power system is world-class." Elder Qin had absolute confidence in his fighter, which incorporated world-leading technologies, granting it numerous advantages in combat. Elder Wu smiled enigmatically and had Li Dalai unveil another cloth. The Phantom fighter was revealed. "Bah, you. How do you have this too?" Elder Qin's eyes widened, his jaw nearly dropping. What was happening? Had his research been stolen? Impossible. He hadn't told anyone during this time. "Hey, you two didn't steal my data, did you? How come your modified plane looks exactly like mine?" Facing Elder Qin's accusation, Elder Wu retorted loudly, "Old man, at your age, don't go around falsely accusing people. Stolen from you. Open your eyes wide and look. Ours is clearly more advanced. Without a word, Elder Qin rushed forward to scrutinize the phantom fighter. But the moment his hand touched the fighter's coating, his heart sank. Damn. He had indeed been outdone by these two old fellows. The phantom fighter possessed the same super stealth capability, but its coating was more effective, crafted from finer materials with no graininess, significantly reducing wind resistance. In contrast, Elder Qin's fighter fell short in this aspect. So, Elder Qin chimed in. Old Qin, I'm telling you, our research direction might be similar, but our results are 1,000 times better. Elder Qin grew flustered. He couldn't let these two old rascals gloat. Noticing the fighter lacked weaponry, an idea struck him. Words are cheap. Let's settle this with action. Elder Qin said calmly, inwardly scheming. Even if he lagged in design and coding, he wouldn't be lacking in actual combat, especially in weaponry. That was his pride and joy. Fine, you're on. Elders Jin and Wu waved their hands. They had been waiting for this moment, knowing well what their old rival was up to. Though they weren't entirely confident, they knew Lin Feng had made modifications before, but they were unsure of the current changes. Zhang Chu eagerly climbed into the cockpit. This time weapons were installed. He just wondered about their power. Soon both fighters started their engines. When the phantom fighter's engine roared to life, Elder Qin was stunned. What was this? It didn't sound like a normal power plant. Was it a new engine design? Elder Qin clenched his fists, staring intently at the phantom fighter. When it executed a catapult takeoff, his eyes nearly popped out. He thought his vertical takeoff and landing was advanced enough. But the other fighter's direct catapult launch was a complete game-changer. Elder Qin's fighter gave chase. In the cockpit, Zhang Chu looked at the enemy aircraft on his radar and smirked. Before taking off, he had consulted Lin Feng and gained a certain understanding of the weapon systems. Dealing with a single stealth fighter was nothing. Even against an entire squadron, he was brimming with confidence. Meanwhile, Elder Qin and the others had arrived at a temporary air command post where the status of both fighters was displayed. Although Elder Qin's fighter was in hot pursuit, the phantom fighter wobbled along at a moderate speed. Zhang Chu was a top ace. How could he fly like that? This was blatant mockery, showing off his speed advantage. It was like toying with Elder Qin's fighter. Seeing this, Elder Qin's face darkened. You little rascal, daring to embarrass me like this. Xiaozhang, show the academicians our results. Shoot down that flashy toy. Elder Qin said sternly, his face grim. His fighter accelerated, locking its weapons onto Zhang Chu's phantom. But just then, everyone watched on the large screen as Zhang Chu's phantom suddenly stalled and executed a falling spin. During the descent, it completely evaded the enemy's lock. Simultaneously, it unleashed immense acceleration, transforming from prey to predator. This was the qualitative leap achieved by the synergy of an ace pilot and an ace fighter. Even Elder Qin couldn't help but nod in approval. This kid has some skill. Elder Wu chuckled. Old Qin, I suggest you admit defeat. That's right. Don't get shot down and embarrass yourself. Elder Qin added proudly. Regardless of the Phantom's attack modules, its speed was unmatched. Elder Qin sneered. What's the rush? The moment you appeared in my sight, your fate was sealed. The next moment, Elder Qin's fighter launched a missile. Seeing its speed, Elders Qin and Wu's faces changed instantly. Good heavens. That was a supersonic missile.